Welcome, theater people.
Canada's Shane Hollander, and Russia's Ilya Rozanov.
Everyone remembers Glee, and even if you didn't watch Glee, you've probably seen the memes or the iconic moments or even heard Glee covers out and about through your own life. But I feel like not enough people remember or talk about the lost iconic musical theater TV show that was Smash on NBC. And now Smash was out around the time that Glee was really big. Glee came out first in about 2009, I believe, and Smash season 1 came out in 2012, and it only had 2 short-lived seasons due to a decline in its writing and also a whole lot of contention and drama going on behind the scenes. But I, as a musical theater enjoyer, really do think Smash was so iconic for the time, and that's why today I am going to be recapping Smash, and this is just going to be part 1 of this little series. We're only going to be talking about season 1 today. Now, much like Glee, Smash has some iconic moments as well as its cringy, memeable moments, and that's why I think it is going to be fun to go back through and recap what happened to Smash to those people who have probably never seen it, or maybe you haven't watched it in a while. I personally have not watched it since my first binge of the entire show, which was quite a few years ago. So as I do my recap, I'm also kind of rewatching and see how my opinions are changing from my first watch or remembering storylines that I completely forgot about. Glee felt like it was a big show that everyone watched, but in particular, the theater kids and the choir kids were obsessed with Glee. But when I say that I think Smash is for the even more hardcore theater kids, it's just simply because Smash just captures the essence of Broadway in every way. Almost the entire cast, as well as side characters and guest roles, are filled with musical theater and Broadway alumni, as well as the main storyline of Smash being about the production of a Broadway musical. And I know Glee had a lot of musical theater people on their show as well as Broadway alumni, but Smash always just felt like it took it to the next level because the show just eats, sleeps, and breathes Broadway. Another reason why I think Smash was a bit of a moment for the Broadway and musical theater lovers is because the show features original songs for its show within a show. And now I love a show that has original music. Talk to me about Daisy Jones and the Six. Talk to me about Julie and the Phantoms. I am always here for original music written for a TV show or movie. And Smash's original music was written by Mark Shaman and Scott Whitman, who were a songwriting duo known for Catch Me If You Can, Some Like It Hot, and most known for Hairspray, as well as their extensive careers within the TV and film industries. So of course, I think my favorite part about the show is the original music because the original music is just so good. And while the show does throw in cover songs here and there, much like the Glee of it all, I think they really shine when they are doing an original song, and the bulk of the music in the show, I would say, is the original songs written for this fictional musical within the television show. It's me from the future cutting in to just let everybody know that this video is probably the biggest project that I've had on this YouTube channel yet. It's taken me a long time to prepare for it. It's taken me a long time to edit, and it's taken me a long time to even film. So obviously you've seen the length. It's going to be a lengthy one, but I hope anyone watching this enjoys themselves because I really had a fun time doing such a big project. Also, I just want to note that at the beginning of this video, I kind of go into some of the background information regarding some of the stuff going on behind the scenes on Smash, and I also touch a little bit on the Broadway production of Smash. If you don't care about any of that and just want to skip to where the recap starts, I will put chapters on this video. So just be aware of that because I tend to yap a lot, as you can see from the length of this video. Anyway, continue to enjoy my Smash Season 1 recap. Now, Smash has always been an interesting topic to me because there was so much going on behind the scenes and even after the show ended. First of all, one of the producers of the show is Steven Spielberg himself, and he was one of the biggest champions for the show, as well as after the show when there was a lot of talks about turning Smash into an actual Broadway musical, which I will talk about in a minute. So the original idea for Smash actually came from Steven Spielberg, as he had this idea to create a TV show based on the production of a musical, and then he wanted to bring that fake musical to the real life Broadway. It was this very ambitious idea, and he worked with this producer, Robert Greenblatt, and it was originally bought for the network Showtime in 2009. Smash won't actually become anything until 2012 when they moved to NBC. Also, Steven Spielberg saw Teresa Rebeck's off-Broadway play called The Understudy, and it's what inspired him to approach her with the opportunity to be the showrunner and head writer for Smash. Now, Teresa Rebeck had never actually been in charge of a TV show before, so producer David Marshall Grant was hired to help Rebeck with the day-to-day operations and to help her run the writer's room. The show really had a lot of musical theater people not only acting and performing on the show, but within its creative team, including Michael Mayer, who was a producer and director on the show. Now, Michael Mayer, probably most known for being the Tony Award-winning director of Spring Awakening. Great musical, by the way. But before we really get into my recap of season 1, I do have to explain a little bit of the behind the scenes drama that was going on, because there was quite a lot of contention going on behind the scenes between the showrunner, the producers, the network, the other writers. And I think this is important to note right now because a lot of people feel like Smash had a really great start, and when the first couple episodes were coming out, it got a lot of critical acclaim, but then it seemed as though there was a steady decline throughout season 1 in terms of the writing. A lot of the characters became more like caricatures. There ended up being a lot of memeable moments that people were making fun of online, and basically by the end of season 1, a large part of the fan base were engaging with the show in a more silly way, looking at it as this thing that had become a little bit ridiculous and over the top and campy instead of the a little bit more serious show that it seemed like it was going to be towards the beginning of season 1. But I think all of Smash is quite a fun time. But essentially, there was a lot of drama going on behind the scenes, and it seems like executive producer and showrunner Teresa Rebeck was at the center of a lot of it. She will get replaced, and there will be a different showrunner in season 2. There was a really interesting article that I will be linking below. It is a BuzzFeed article, but before you start to question me, just know that it came out in 2013, kind of after all this stuff was coming out. And basically, BuzzFeed journalist Kate Arthur interviewed a bunch of crew members who worked on Smash season 1 and had them recount their experiences with all of the drama and stuff that was going on behind the scenes. Allegedly, Teresa Rebeck had a really hard time giving up her control over the show. She didn't really care to have a writer's room. She didn't really want other people putting input on her story. So it made it really hard for some of the other writers to even give a suggestion or a concern with different plot points that were going on. Allegedly. It's stated in the article that there was a couple of storylines that were really personal to her in particular. The article says that she kind of based Deborah Messing's character of Julia loosely off of herself. So she felt very personal about this character, and it was even more difficult for other writers to give suggestions on certain storylines regarding the character of Julia because Teresa Rebeck allegedly was so adamant about how she wanted this character to be. There's also this adoption storyline, which I will talk about when I get into my recap. And in the article, they said that a bunch of the writers and producers didn't like the way that the adoption storyline was ending up in season 1, but they felt like they couldn't say anything because it was so based on events that had actually happened to Rebeck in her personal life. And so there was no way she was going to change that particular storyline. All this to say, some of the crew members said that David Marshall Grant was a really great producer, but it seems as though Teresa Rebeck felt threatened by him, by the fact that the executives and the network placed Grant there to sort of help her out. But it seems as though she was always worried that Grant was placed there to be her replacement. And according to the accounts of the crew members within this article, it was just a difficult environment to work in because it was so messy. They would say that Rebeck wanted final say in a lot of the scripts, and a lot of the writer's room ended up being writers writing drafts individually and then giving it to Rebeck to do the final draft. But because of that, crew members said that they noticed that story beats were being repeated because the writers were writing these episodes individually and they didn't know that another writer already had this beat for this character just one episode before. A lot of the characters turned more into caricatures of themselves. A lot of the villains became cartoonishly evil. The show was kind of going a little bit off the rails, and a lot of people didn't like the direction it was going, but they felt like they really had no say because Rebeck was so reluctant to give up her control of the show. Allegedly. I just want to reiterate in the article that some crew members do say that they thought it seems as though Rebeck just felt pretty insecure in terms of her job security and always thinking that the network was going to replace her. But putting all the reasons why aside, it was a bit of a mess. There was so much going on that's even messier. Steven Spielberg had these two producer guys who apparently were the more hands-on producers that were seeing the day-to-day operations on set and stuff, and we're seeing the mess behind the scenes. But allegedly, the crew members say that in the article, these two producer guys were keeping a lot of the mess that was going on from Steven Spielberg as to not worry him. There was also a whole thing about Steven Spielberg not wanting Megan Hilty to play Ivy, which is crazy because Megan Hilty is like the star of the show, in my opinion, and she's like so integral. What was he thinking there? I'm so glad people put their foot down about that. There was also a bunch of producers on the show that were unhappy with a couple of the characters and a couple of the actors playing those parts, but those characters never got written out of the show or replaced. There was just so much going on and a lot of fighting behind the scenes about what was going on within the show. I just had to mention all of that drama that was allegedly happening because I think it's important when recapping the show if it seems like there's a bit of decline or things are starting a little bit to go off the rails and we're still having a silly fun good time as we will. Just know that there was a big mess going on behind the scenes. And before I officially start this recap, I do want to mention the implications of Smash as a whole, because Steven Spielberg's original idea was to have this TV show and then to produce the musical within the show actually on Broadway in real life. Now, the musical within the show is a musical about Marilyn Monroe, and there was a lot of talks after Smash ended about producing this musical for real, but nothing ever really came up of it. In 2015, the original cast did a concert performing the Bombshell Marilyn Monroe musical, but in concert form. A bunch of fans donated to a Kickstarter campaign in order to get Bombshell the musical in concert, and the tickets sold out very quickly. It was a big deal at the time, but for years after the Bombshell concert with the cast of Smash, there had been talks about creating this musical for Broadway. Nothing ever came of it. In 2020, in the midst of the pandemic, when it seems like everybody was doing some sort of virtual reunion, the recorded concert from 2015 was live streamed to a bunch of people watching, and then they casted a virtual reunion afterwards, which was a fun thing. Then in 2022, after almost 10 years of talking about making something on Broadway out of the TV show Smash, there was a reading followed by a 6-week workshop, not of the Bombshell musical, but of Smash the musical. So they scrapped the idea to produce this show within a show and decided to just make a musical based on the TV show Smash. In 2023, they announced that Smash the musical would be on Broadway. In 2024, they did another workshop for Smash the musical. And then last year, in 2025, Smash the musical finally opened on Broadway, but had a very short-lived life, closing just a few months later in June after having 32 previews and only 84 regular performances. So the 10 to 15 year timeline of getting Smash onto Broadway finally came to a short-lived close. So now that you have all of the important background information, let's get on into the recap. I'm so sorry for taking so long on that intro. Episode 1 starts out with Katharine McPhee of Season 5 runner-up of American Idol fame singing Somewhere Over the Rainbow. She's on stage and it's this beautiful production, and there's this thing that the show likes to do where they switch back and forth between the production of something within somebody's imagination and the real life of what is actually going on. And they do this a couple of times in which someone is imagining themselves on a stage doing a great performance, and then it's almost like the cartoonishly record scratch cut to she's actually auditioning for a musical theater role. Katharine McPhee plays the character of Karen, and Karen is a Iowa transplant who is living and working in New York City and is really trying to get her big break on Broadway, but nothing has happened yet. In this audition, you can tell why she is getting more and more discouraged, because she did a beautiful performance, but the people watching her audition seem very bored and not interested. Musical theater icon and Tony Award nominee herself, Megan Hilty, is playing the character of Ivy Lynn. Ivy is the seasoned Broadway performer who has never quite had her big break yet. She has been in Broadway ensembles for 10 years, but she has been working and dreaming of getting a leading part. Then we meet the characters of Tom and Julia. Tom is played by Broadway alum Christian Borle. Julia is played by Deborah Messing. Tom and Julia are a writing team. Tom is the music behind the team, and Julia is the words, writing the lyrics, and the books. One thing about Julia, she's always wearing a scarf. Tom and Julia are returning to Tom's home, where we meet his assistant Ellis, who had been house sitting for him. Now Ellis is quite interesting in the character that he will become later on within the season. Ellis is one of those characters that there was a lot of arguments going on behind the scenes of wanting to write the character differently or have him played by a different actor. Steven Spielberg really liked this character apparently, but he seems okay for now in this episode. Just know that later on he will descend into a cartoon caricature. But anyway, it is Ellis that originally brings the idea to Tom and Julia that Marilyn Monroe would make a great musical. Tom and Julia are on the fence about it. Apparently, somebody tried to do a Marilyn Monroe musical before and it was a major flop. But upon thinking about it again, Tom says, you could do a baseball number. Julia returns home to her husband, played by Broadway alum and Tony Award nominee Brian Darcy James. Julia's husband is not happy that Julia is talking about this idea for another musical, as Julia had promised him that she would take a break from producing another show for a while. However, he also makes the comment that you could do a baseball number. Oh, the people are yearning for I Don't Dance from High School Musical 2 scene. Ivy, who is performing in one of Tom and Julia's current shows on Broadway, gets the note that she didn't get the part in another audition. She's upset because she doesn't want to be in the ensemble anymore. She wants to be a lead. Julia and Tom immediately start working on a demo song for this Marilyn idea, which upsets Julia's husband because they are in the middle of an adoption, and she had promised him that she would take a whole year off so she could focus on the adoption. Julia tells her husband, I don't want anyone else to do her, referring to the Marilyn musical. We cut back over to a scene with Karen. She is having dinner with her visiting parents and her boyfriend Dev. Dev works in the mayor's office, and Karen's parents are worried about Karen following her dreams to be an actress in the city because she hasn't got any parts yet, and her parents are worried about how she will be able to provide for herself financially. Ivy, who is close to Tom and Julia since she has been in the ensemble for their musicals before, and she's especially close to Tom, is recording the demo for the Marilyn song with Tom and Julia when Tom's assistant Ellis takes a video of Ivy singing and posts it to a platform called ULens, which I thought was extremely hilarious. Ellis claims that he didn't mean to post it publicly, he just emailed it to his mother. So now a bunch of people have watched Ivy sing the demo version of this Marilyn song, and Julia is very upset that her work got out there before it was truly finished and ready. In this conversation with her husband, they make a dig at Spider-Man the musical and mention maiming people, which I thought was particularly funny because anyone who knows the lore of Spider-Man Turn Off the Dark musical knows what a mess that show was. It is wild and insane, and I suggest looking it up if you are interested. There's so much other stuff that happened there, but we will move on. Even though Julia is upset that everyone is hearing the song before it was officially ready, there's a journalist / critic online that refers to the song as a smash, which is the name of the show.
Thinks the number online is a smash.
Hey, that's the name of the show.
We also see Karen watching the video of Ivy singing the song and singing along herself. Then we get to meet one of my favorite characters, Eileen Rand, played by Academy Award winner Angelica Houston. Eileen is a producer that is getting divorced from her husband, and they are currently trying to separate all of their assets, which means that their production company is currently in escrow. Next, we see Tom previewing the baseball number to Julia and Ellis. Tom actually kind of likes Ellis, so even though Julia doesn't trust him and wanted to fire him, he ends up finding a way to become an assistant for Tom once again. Tom previews the song National Pastime. Julia and Tom then go to a meeting with Eileen, who wants to produce their Marilyn musical. Eileen wants this director guy, Derek Wills, to direct the Marilyn musical, much to the chagrin of Tom and Julia. It seems as though Derek has a bit of a history that we as the audience are unaware of, but will we come to find out. I just want it to be known that I do not like the character of Derek. I think he is gross and annoying. He is also played by Jack Davenport, who I recognize as Norrington from the Pirates of the Caribbean movies. Julia likes Eileen, but she's worried about Eileen producing the musical because of Eileen's complicated situation within the company, as the divorce is still ongoing and we are unsure how much money Eileen actually has to be able to produce this musical. Eileen is really pushing for Derek to direct the Marilyn musical because Eileen originally called on Derek to direct a My Fair Lady musical, which can no longer happen because, of course, it is in escrow because of the divorce. Eileen convinces Tom and Julia to let Derek have a audition for them. We see that Tom and Derek really don't like each other, but Derek directs a performance of the baseball number with Ivy as Marilyn. Julia is quite impressed by what Derek did. Tom concedes that the work is brilliant, but he is worried about Derek's history and even refers to Derek as a terrible human being. We cut to the Marilyn audition. Karen arrives and she's immediately nervous, noticing that all of the other women auditioning had dressed up as Marilyn and she did not. We see a scene of another woman auditioning. The woman in the scene is played by Tony Award winner Annalie Ashford. It seems as though Derek and Eileen feel like maybe someone famous should play Marilyn, but Tom and Julia are really pushing for Ivy. Karen comes in to audition and she sings Beautiful by Christina Aguilera. Derek finds it refreshing that Karen was the only one who didn't come dressed as Marilyn. Both Karen and Ivy receive a callback for the role of Marilyn. Karen receives a message from Derek and she goes over to his place to work with him privately. During the scene, he judges her for the way she's dressed and for going over to the director's home after 10 p.m. for a private meeting, even though he's the inappropriate one for asking Karen to come over and telling her that he wanted to work with her. It's really just so gross, and it tells us the kind of person Derek is. He doesn't care about any sort of ethical boundaries that he's crossing, and he will cross them. And he really annoys me because the nerve he has to be judging Karen for her actions when he's the one who had asked her to come over is quite ridiculous, and he knows that he's the director, so he's in this position of power, and she is a woman who is desperate to get this role, so of course she's going to want to do whatever he asks of her in order to try and get this part. Derek asks Karen to perform the Happy Birthday Mr. President scene, and Karen does it even though she seems quite uncomfortable to do it. This is a nightmare. This is why these productions really need HR, okay? Then the episode ends where we finally get to hear probably my favorite song in the entire show, probably the best original song of the show, the Let Me Be Your Star. We see Karen and Ivy both getting ready for the audition while singing Let Me Be Your Star. It just feels like an iconic moment and such a great way to end the episode, especially by introducing the audience to this song, by letting us hear both Megan Hilty and Catherine McPhee sing the song. I can absolutely tell why people were really excited about this show when it was first coming out, especially within these first episodes, because I think it sets up for a very interesting season. In episode 2, we find out that there's going to be a second callback for Karen and Ivy. We get another scene very similar to the Somewhere Over the Rainbow scene, where it looks like Karen is doing this performance of Call Me by Blondie, but then it cuts to the real life scenario where she's actually just at her job. We get a scene where they're discussing who should play Marilyn. Derek is really pushing for Karen and he calls her hot. He's so gross. Like everything that you could think of about who could be a gross male character that uses his position of power to take advantage of these young actresses. He embodies that role. And I hate it every time he's on my screen, honestly. I have it in my notes that I love a New York City walk and talk. And one thing I really love about Smash is that it was shot in New York, and they really do use the city for quite a few scenes throughout all the episodes. Sometimes they're in a park, sometimes they're just on the city streets, sometimes they're walking in Times Square. It's really cool to see that they filmed a lot of this stuff on location and used the atmosphere of the city. And I love a good New York City walk and talk. Karen's second callback is for dance because she's not as strong as a dancer. During her callback, we see she has this weird moment with Derek in front of everybody, and the other dancers are noticing. During the dance callback is also where we get to hear another one of the original songs for the first time, which is the 20th Century Fox Mambo. Tom and Julia are building the structure for the musical. Julia says maybe it doesn't have to be so linear and suggests starting off with Let Me Be Your Star. They sing a snippet from Let Me Be Your Star again, and I just love every time I hear the song in the show. Julia has always been extremely annoyed by Ellis, but she is becoming more so by the day. Ellis is really overexcited about the whole thing because he feels as though the Marilyn musical was his idea. Julia does not like that Ellis is talking about how the Marilyn musical was his idea, and also Julia does not like how Ellis had filmed and posted the Ivy video in the episode before. We see Karen struggling in the dance callback, and then we see Karen and Ivy meet each other for the first time. Kind of a big moment because much of the show is about this sort of competition between Karen and Ivy for that leading spot. Ivy is practicing her Marilyn impression while backstage at one of her performances. It's pretty good. And one thing about Ivy is she puts in the work. I mean, Karen also does work for her stuff, but Ivy has been doing this for 10 years. She hasn't gotten her lead part yet, and she wants this so badly that we see Ivy studying Marilyn. She's reading the books. She's watching the movies. She's trying to get the mannerisms down. Like, she is so serious about this, and I don't want you to forget that because Ivy can be portrayed as this mean girl diva kind of character, and I think we as the audience are supposed to be rooting for Karen, who's more of the girl next door from a small town with a big dream, and she's nice to everybody. And sure, Karen is fine most of the time, but I hate how Ivy always gets portrayed as the villain. Does she do things that she shouldn't do? Yes, but I do really feel for Ivy throughout the show because she's putting in the work, and we can see the beginnings of that even here. Julia's husband is having second thoughts about the adoption after finding out that the process is going to take at least another 2 years. It's also important to note that Julia and her husband have a son named Leo who gives the line delivery of the century right here.
Mom, we've been talking about this forever.
There's a nice moment between Tom and Ivy where Tom is telling Ivy to be careful around Derek as Tom still doesn't trust him. Tom also makes it known to Ivy that he would have just given the part to her without making her jump through all these hoops and callbacks. Tom and Ivy are good friends. Tom knows what Ivy can do, and Tom is really pushing for Ivy to have the role of Marilyn. In a meeting with Eileen, Derek says that he thinks Ivy is trying too hard and that Karen is too green. At this meeting with Derek, Eileen runs into her soon-to-be ex-husband Jerry, and if there's one thing that Jerry is going to do, it's going to be purposely run into Eileen. Jerry tells her that no one is going to buy Marilyn the musical and that Eileen is making a fool of herself right before Eileen throws her drink in his face. She's such a queen and I love her. Eileen tells Derek that she wants to move to off-Broadway and Broadway quickly after the Marilyn workshop. Derek thinks that she's moving too fast. Actually, you could say he's got a singular impression. Things are moving too fast. Yes, I made a reference to The Last 5 Years. The Last 5 Years, another really great musical. Also, connections because the movie version of The Last 5 Years features Jeremy Jordan playing the main role of Jamie, and Jeremy Jordan, we will come to find out, will be a series regular and recurring character in season 2, something to look forward to.
Yes, it's Jeremy Jordan.
Julia's husband informs her that he wants to go back to work as a science teacher. He's getting real discouraged about the whole adoption thing taking another 2 years. Derek keeps Karen late after a rehearsal. He wants to work on the DiMaggio scene with her, and because of this, Karen misses an important dinner meeting with Dev and some important people from his work. The situation is kind of Karen's fault, kind of Derek being a jerk, but Karen texted Dev that she was on the way to meet him at this important work dinner, and then Derek made her stay late, and Karen never texted Dev to say that she was staying late. So actually, the biggest thing that Dev is upset about is not the fact that Karen stood him up. He's rightfully upset because he was worried that something had happened to her on the way to the dinner, since she said she was on the way and she never showed up. And this is like one of the few times that I'm on Dev's side, because Dev doesn't stay a good boyfriend. Dev doesn't stay a good boyfriend throughout the rest of season 1, but in this instance, he's absolutely in the right. They make it like Derek was like, get back into rehearsal. We got stuff to work on. Is that a problem? And they make it look like if Karen even took out her phone to text Dev that she was going to be running late, that she would be in trouble with Derek. But come on, Karen, you couldn't have like said you had to go to the bathroom or something and sent a quick text. Like, how much of your time would it have taken to send a quick text while you're putting your bag down? You know what I mean? So I am on Dev's side, because even though he was upset that she kind of stood him up and it was an important dinner for him, he was more so upset because he spent the whole night worrying about her, as he should. Whereas Karen's callback is for dance, Ivy's callback is for acting. She's working on the DiMaggio scene. Once again, Derek is going to be gross and creepily use his position of power in order to get with the girls, and it ends up that Derek and Ivy are hooking up now. And then it's finally time for the second callback audition, where Karen performs the 20th Century Fox Mambo. This is really where we as the audience get to see and hear a lot of the song for the first time. A lot of times in these scenes where they are performing one of the original songs, just know that the scene usually takes place in a rehearsal room, but we end up getting what the characters are imagining the stage production of this musical is going to turn out to be. So it cuts to very bright clips with full lighting on a stage in full costume with wigs, makeup, props, full dance number, and it's always a joy when we get a scene like that. It's a lot of fun. Afterwards, everyone's discussing the auditions, and their biggest qualm with Ivy is that she's too perfect. I wrote in my notes, get real. Like, they really can't find a bad thing to say about Ivy, but they're still on the fence about if she should play Marilyn. Before, Derek says that she was trying too hard, and now they're like, maybe she's too perfect for the role. Get a grip, people. Cast this woman. She's been working for it for years. Also, during the scene, we see Ellis eavesdropping on the conversation behind a closed door. And one thing about Ellis is he's going to be lurking around a corner, eavesdropping on people. This is probably the first of 100 more incidents to come throughout this season of Ellis cartoonishly lurking behind a corner and listening to people's conversations. So be prepared for that, and just know that it's going on at the same time that the scene is happening. Then Tom goes to tell Ivy in person that she got it. Yay, Ivy. She is now officially cast as Marilyn for this workshop. Derek tells Eileen that he turned down other job opportunities in order to further working on the Marilyn workshop. Julia is attending some kind of support group for people going through the adoption process. If you remember just earlier, Julia's husband has been second guessing the adoption. He wants to go back to work as a science teacher now. And Julia is sharing this letter that she wrote to the potential birth mother of her future adoptive child at this, I think it's a support group. Her husband overhears, and this indicates to us that he's getting back on board. He still wants to go through with the adoption. Ivy and her friends are celebrating her at this jazz club bar where Ivy performs a cover of Crazy Dreams by Carrie Underwood. And that's the end of episode 2. Episode 3 opens up and we see that Ivy and Derek are still hooking up. Ivy seems to genuinely like Derek and want to be pursuing a relationship with him, but Derek never fully seems on board. He always seems detached. Ivy also mentions that she would like to get with him to work on Marilyn, and he makes a joke that that's what we're doing, which I wrote, yuck. I really don't like this man. The jokes that he makes are disgusting. I don't like the way he talks about the woman. I don't like the way that he basically harasses the woman. And even though Ivy is on board with this right now because it seems like she actually wants to pursue a real relationship with Derek, I don't like it. I don't like it. Ivy is talking to her friend Jessica, who is one of the other main ensemble members. She's played by another seasoned Broadway performer, Savannah Wise. In this conversation, Ivy is starting to question if she only got the part because she's sleeping with the director. Karen is meeting with Derek and they are talking about how even though she didn't get the role, she's going to be in the ensemble. Dev crashes this meeting because he doesn't trust Derek as he should. Derek has exhibited creepy behavior towards Karen, and Dev has a right to be a little bit worried for Karen. Tom, Julia, Derek, and Eileen are discussing who should be playing the male parts within this musical. They go to a small off-Broadway type of theater to check out this performance of this guy named Michael Swift, who is doing some sort of Bruno Mars jukebox theater, but it gives the show a chance to let Will Chase do a cover of Grenade. Will Chase is playing Michael Swift, and he is another Tony-nominated Broadway guy. Eileen and Derek are having a meeting, and Jerry annoyingly shows up and crashes it again. Like I said, if there's one thing Jerry's gonna do, it's gonna be stalk Eileen and crash her and her in work meetings. He talks about trying to poach Derek for his production of My Fair Lady, bragging that it could be happening soon, which if you recall, it was originally Eileen's idea to do My Fair Lady with Derek, but she couldn't produce the musical because it was apparently in escrow, but now Jerry seems to be able to be getting his hands on it. All this to say, once again, Eileen tosses her drink in Jerry's face, as she should. Julia tells Tom she doesn't love DiMaggio as a character. Tom is wondering what is going on with Julia because he says you can't do a Marilyn musical without DiMaggio, and it seems like Julia is hesitant for a reason that is not quite revealed yet. We also see Michael Swift at home with his wife and young child, and he's also hesitant about accepting the role of Joe DiMaggio. Eileen is having a meeting with investors. They tell her they don't think she could produce a project without her ex-husband's name attached. A lot of people are worried about working with her because all of her assets are in escrow. Ellis is hanging out with his friends, and they encourage him that he should be getting paid more, not as Tom's assistant, but because Tom and Julia are using his Marilyn idea. We then see that Ellis steals Julia's notebook. He's starting to slowly morph into this villainous character that we will see moving forward. Karen goes home for the weekend to attend a friend's baby shower. She's staying at her parents' house. Her parents are worried for her because the musical is only really a workshop, and the workshop pays extremely low. We see Ivy talking to her friends about her relationship with Derek. She's spiraling because Derek hasn't talked to her in 3 days. It seems as though Ivy is more invested in this, whereas Derek is only viewing this as a situationship. Michael Swift goes to Eileen's office to talk about the DiMaggio role. While he's there, he runs into Julia. They share a bit of a moment indicating that they have some sort of history there. This would explain why Julia was hesitant about the DiMaggio role when she found out that they wanted Michael to play it, and why Michael was so hesitant to accept the role in the first place. Jerry does what Jerry's gonna do and stalks Eileen, finding out where she was going to have an important meeting with investors, and once again shows up to crash the meeting. I wrote in my notes, why is he obsessed with her? Go away. I am so annoyed by this man. Honestly, leave her alone. Leave her alone. He tells them that he met with the investor and actually got them on board with the Marilyn musical, but also he wants to be included and takes credit for helping her. Obviously, Eileen is not too pleased about this. She doesn't want Jerry to be involved with the project, and she wants to prove to everybody that she can do it on her own. Jerry insinuates here that Eileen could not get investors on her own. Eileen says, "This is my musical and I'm producing it by myself." And now, what do you think Eileen did next? If you guess throwing yet another drink into Jerry's face, you would be correct. She's kind of an icon. Another one of the ensemble members / Ivy's friends that have been seen so far in the show is this character, Dennis. He is also played by a seasoned musical theater and Broadway performer, Philip Spaeth. Dennis is meeting with Tom for lunch. He's a current performer in Tom and Julia's musical that is currently on Broadway. Tom is under the impression that Dennis wants to meet with him because his contract is coming up and he wants a raise. Dennis is shocked and admits that he asked Tom to lunch because he wants to shoot his shot and he wants to date Tom. Tom is taken by surprise, but Dennis said that Ivy encouraged him to shoot a shot because she is dating Derek after all. This is the first time that Tom is hearing about Ivy dating Derek, and obviously he's not too pleased about this given Derek's history and given how worried Tom was about Derek in the first place. Also, Tom and Ivy are close friends, so obviously he's going to be worried about her. Tom is upset. He's complaining to Julia, saying that Derek is taking advantage of Ivy and that he's being unethical. I would agree with Tom here, especially seeing how Derek acts with a lot of the women who are working for him as performers. Julia kind of brushes Tom's worries off, saying that it's just show business and that's the kind of thing that happens in the industry. This is so annoying to me, as I'm sure it is realistic because we have heard plenty of stories about sexual harassment and workplace misconduct and directors and producers using their positions of power to take advantage of younger people in the industry. And yeah, it does make sense why this would be a plotline, but it's so frustrating the way that it's done, especially with somebody like Julia brushing it off, saying it's just show business. It's so icky. And I know it's probably like written that way to be realistic, but it's hard to watch, man. Julia then has another run-in with Ellis. She really hates this guy, but Ellis has this newfound confidence. If you remember, he did steal her notebook. Ellis tells Julia that she should watch the way that she's talking to him. Julia comes back with the fact that she fired him once and she can do it again. Remember, Tom and Julia did fire Ellis, but it was very short-lived. And Ellis does bring this up, saying, we saw how well that worked the first time. Ellis is confident that Tom really likes having him as an assistant and that Julia really can't get him fired. Ellis then gives Julia's notebook back to her, saying that he found it. Eileen finally meets with that investor that she was supposed to, except for he keeps bringing up these things that Jerry had told him. Jerry had gotten to him first. Eileen tells him that Jerry is not going to be producing this musical with her. The investor tells her that he would be more comfortable with investing if Jerry was attached on the business side. This is not going great for Eileen. I really love Eileen as a character and I really love her storyline. She really does care about the art of things, whereas Jerry even admits earlier that he doesn't care about musicals as art. He only cares about it as a business, bringing money in. But Eileen really wants to produce something good and to prove to everybody that she can do it on her own. And it's so frustrating. Not only does she have this annoying ex lurking always in the background, but every single person does not have faith that she will be able to do this without her annoying ex that is lurking in the background. And I am really rooting for her because I really want her to prove Jerry and all the other stupid business people in the industry wrong. Of course, at the baby shower, Karen's friends make her sing karaoke at this bar. She does a cover of Redneck Woman by Gretchen Wilson. It's fine. It's not my favorite every time the show does a cover. One, because usually the covers are so awkwardly placed within the show, whereas when they're doing an original song, they're working on the musical. They're rehearsing. We're seeing what the production is actually going to look like. It feels like it really fits in the show, but a lot of times when they're throwing these covers in, they just don't fit at all. I almost rather not have a lot of these cover songs in there, but I know they're doing it just because they want to have more songs within the episode. Anyway, it's fine, but it's not my favorite. Ivy confronts Derek, asking him why he's always coming over to her place, but he never invites her over to his place. He tells her something about the gas in his building not working and him being embarrassed because his apartment doesn't have gas or something like that. At this point, I think we're supposed to believe that this is true, but it's so hard for me to believe anything that this character says. They don't really allude to it being a lie, so I guess that was the reason the whole time. But me personally, like in my headcanon, Derek is just coming up with a stupid excuse because he didn't want Ivy coming over to his place. That's how I see it, but the show never confirms this, so I think we're supposed to believe otherwise and that he's telling the truth here. But what do you think? We get a scene of Tom working on one of the other original songs, and we hear a snippet of Mr. and Mrs. Smith. Julia walks in, and then they kind of make up over the big argument they had over Derek taking advantage of Ivy. Tom apologizes and says it's just that Derek's history is so terrible and he loves Ivy so much. Julia admits to Tom that she had an affair with Michael Swift 5 years ago and she never told anybody. Now we have the full story of why Michael and Julia didn't want to work together. Also, Julia, somebody in a position of power, having an affair with one of the performers again. This is like the second instance of this same plot line happening. And like I said, I know this probably happens throughout the industry, but the way it keeps happening in the show is almost exhausting. We really need more HR within the entertainment industry so people can stop getting taken advantage of. Not to say that Michael was being taken advantage of by Julia, but it could have been. We don't really know the full story. All we know is Julia is a writer and a producer and somebody in a position of power, and Michael is somebody who just really wants to be working and performing. So it's just like kind of crazy that almost every single person in the show within a position of power is doing something that is borderline unethical to completely unethical, depending on the situation and how you see it. But anyway, Ellis overhears this conversation with Julia and Tom, as he's wont to do. If there's one thing Ellis is going to do, it's going to be overhear a conversation. And we get the indication that, of course, Ellis is going to use this information as leverage and to his advantage moving forward. One thing that's particularly funny to me about the writing of the show, and this could be because of the mess that was going on behind the scenes, is how many times we see a similar thing happening. It's not just occasionally Ellis heard one or two things throughout the season, but it's that he's constantly lurking and overhearing things and eavesdropping, and how they constantly use that as a plot line and continue to do it. And the same way with like really little things like Eileen throwing her drink in Jerry's face. I mean, I'm gonna eat it up every time, but the fact that they've already did it 3 times in just 4 episodes is a little bit crazy. Back over with Karen, her dad is giving her a check because he wants her to continue to pursue her dreams and to be able to work on this workshop, but he's worried about the money situation. Apparently, he became inspired to be even more supportive of her after hearing her sing that song at the karaoke bar the night before. Karen didn't know he was there, but apparently he was. He heard it, and now he's cutting her a check. The episode then ends with Ivy and Michael recording the demo for Mr. and Mrs. Smith. Episode 4 is a side character ensemble heavier episode. So I just want to go ahead and introduce some of the important characters real quick. So, when I mention Karen's new friends or Ivy's friends or the ensemble members, I'm probably talking about these people. I already talked about Dennis and Jessica, but I also have to mention there's Bobby, who is played by Wesley Taylor, another musical theater and Broadway alum, and Sue, who is played by Jenny LaRoche. She's another Broadway performer, but she's also been a Broadway dance captain and choreographer. So Bobby, Dennis, Jessica, and Sue are kind of like the main side character ensemble people we see pretty often. It's the first day of the workshop, and Eileen is being told that she only has access to $8,000 of her own money. Meanwhile, Jerry seems to be running around town spending money like it's nobody's business. Now, this is also another important episode because it is the episode that we are first introduced to Tony Award winner Leslie Odom Jr. as the character of Sam. This is so exciting. I love Leslie Odom Jr. in this. I do think he is severely and criminally underused throughout the entire 2 seasons of this show. Like, they had Leslie Odom Jr., this incredible performer. And I know they have a lot of incredible performers, Christian Borle, Megan Hilty, whatever. But if there's one thing that was so shocking to me upon first watch is like, they don't give Leslie Odom Jr. enough to do throughout the show, in my opinion. He doesn't often get the moments that he does to like really sing and perform and to shine. And it's so crazy because they have somebody so talented there, and they're not finding a space for him to really show off that talent, if you know what I mean. And I know people are going to say he's just a side character, but I don't know. I think it speaks to the show if they highlighted some of these other talented people also to be like, wow, everyone on the show is really amazing. But we'll move on. Ivy is a little on edge because no one, not even Derek, told her that Karen was going to be in the ensemble of the workshop. Eileen and Julia are meeting on the first day of the workshop, and Eileen is considering selling an original Degas painting that she owns in order to get money to produce this workshop. New original song alert. In this episode, we get our first glimpses of I Never Met a Wolf That Didn't Love to Howl as the workshop cast is rehearsing this number. This also is not the best episode for Ivy as she is gone full diva. She's really insecure about Karen being there. She makes a comment about Karen in front of everyone, basically insinuating that somebody is singing too loud, doing too much, and then Karen will eventually end up getting moved to the back because of Ivy's antics here. In this scene, Ivy says that some people in the chorus are singing too loud, and Bobby gets annoyed with Ivy for referring to the ensemble as the chorus. During a break, Sam, Bobby, and the rest of the ensemble are talking about Ivy's relationship with Derek. This is the first time that Karen is hearing about this information. Ivy goes to lunch with Tom where she mentions again about Karen singing too loud in the Wolf number in hopes that Tom will give a note to Karen to tone it down. A major plot line in this episode is Derek throwing this birthday party for this young performer named Lyle West, who Derek claims to have discovered. He's back in town. Derek and Tom have a bit of beef over this as they both believe to be the ones to have discovered Lyle. After lunch, Tom does encourage the choreographer to have Karen step to the back in the number. This doesn't seem to satisfy Ivy as she still seems to be getting distracted by the fact of Karen being there. Derek sees that Ivy is obviously still having a problem with Karen, so he ends up kicking Karen and Bobby out of the number. Eileen is trying to sell her original Degas art piece. She is getting torn up about it as she really is a woman of the arts and she really loves this particular work, but she's got to sell it because she needs the money to produce this musical. Except for she does run into a problem. The art was given to her as a gift from Jerry. He didn't even like it or ever appreciate it, but because the original paperwork is in his name, she'll need to do more paperwork or get a letter of transfer from Jerry in order to sell it. So now she's kind of at a dead end again. Once again, we have a new song alert as the workshop is rehearsing History is Made at Night. Ivy is once again getting distracted because she can so clearly hear Karen's voice while they're rehearsing. She makes another comment about this and Derek agrees with her. So Tom ends up telling Karen to sit out of the number. I really like Ivy a lot and I really get her insecurities and where they're coming from. Ivy has worked so hard and this is finally her big break, but it is so nerve-wracking to see that there's somebody coming up that's possibly aiming to take her spot. So I can see why she feels threatened by Karen, but I can't be on her side when she's doing all this to get Karen kicked out of every single dance number. It's like, Ivy, I get it, but you gotta stop. Afterwards, Karen is obviously upset. She feels like Ivy is trying to get her fired and she's crying. She has a confrontation with Jessica, who walks in on her crying. She says that everyone was once a beginner too. They were once at the spot where Karen was, and it is not nice the way that everyone is treating her. Karen really feels like she's on the outs here. She also makes a point saying that she could have slept with Derek too if she really wanted to, but she didn't. Jessica starts to feel bad for the way Karen has been treated. Her and some of the other ensemble members take her out to give her advice. They also invite her to join their dance class with them. Julia mentions this Lyle birthday party to Eileen. Eileen apparently also knew Lyle when he was a little boy and performing on Broadway. Julia also mentions how this TV show that Lyle was recently in sold in syndication for like $80 million. So now this kid is like filthy rich. Eileen literally sees money signs in her eyes. Maybe she can use her connection to Lyle to get the money she needs to finish producing this workshop. Sam tells Ivy that she didn't have to pull a diva on Karen, to which Ivy replies, I didn't even pull half a diva. And I just really like that line. The other ensemble members are now becoming friends with Karen. They end back up at her apartment and they start going through to fix her wardrobe. We finally get to this Lyle birthday party that has been mentioned all episode, and we see that Lyle is played by none other than Nick Jonas of the Jonas Brothers fame. Nick Jonas is famous on this channel because I famously talked about the Jonas Brothers Christmas movie, so there's a connection here. I know I do a lot of different things on this channel, but it's all connected, okay? But anyway, Nick Jonas is singing a cover of Michael Bublé's Just Haven't Met You Yet, and I think Nick Jonas was included in this show because at the time, I feel like this was around the time that Nick was starring on Broadway in How to Succeed in Business. I could be wrong. He was very much in the musical theater world and currently performing and starring in a show around this time. So it makes sense. Having Nick Jonas on the show is not as random as you think, especially for that time period. There's a couple strange scenes involving Nick Jonas's character, Lyle. They make a joke, but I'm not sure if it's actually supposed to be a joke, where Derek is introducing Lyle to somebody and he says that he's 15. And then Lyle comments, actually, I'm 12. And I'm not sure what is supposed to be the joke here. Is he supposed to be 15 or is he supposed to be 12? I couldn't figure it out. Or is that all a joke and he was actually a little bit older? Because then there's this weird situation that he has with Ivy that made me feel really icky. And I'm like, how old was Nick Jonas supposed to be in this role? I looked it up, and in real life, around the time he was probably about 20. He looks pretty young, but he doesn't look 12. Maybe he can pass for 15, but I'm not sure if the show was saying that he was actually supposed to be 15 or supposed to be 12. Either way, it's really weird if he is supposed to be 15 or 12, and that whole banter with him and Derek wasn't a joke, because there's this weird moment where Ivy is like hitting on him later, and I don't know, I don't like it. Julia runs into Ellis at Lyle's party and she's shocked to see him there, especially because Tom wasn't at that party. So she's wondering, how did Ellis even get himself an invite? I am also wondering this information because the show never shows us how Ellis actually got into this party. So I guess we'll never know if he finessed his way in or he somehow got an invite from Tom to go separately. We don't know, but it is interesting. Eileen brings the Degas art to Lyle's party, and she's trying to convince him to invest in art because it's the one thing that never loses its value. But Lyle is actually pretty smart. He knows it's not about the art. He asks her how much she needs for her production, and he's actually more interested in investing in the production with the artwork as collateral. So basically, Lyle will be investing directly into Marilyn the musical. If it does well, Eileen will get to keep the Degas piece, but if it doesn't do well, Lyle will get the piece and he won't lose any money. It's pretty smart, actually. Meanwhile, Karen is back at her own apartment hanging out with her new ensemble friends. The friends also meet Dev, and they are teaching Karen some dance technique and choreography. Eileen tells Julia to call Tom and Michael and get them to the party. Lyle wants to see a song from Marilyn so he knows what he's investing in. They perform a song, and during the performance, someone hands Nick Jonas a guitar, of course, because just in case you didn't recognize that that is in fact Nick Jonas, we have to strap a guitar around him, which he absolutely does not play in this scene and doesn't even bother to make it look like he is playing a guitar. I thought within the storyline of the show, maybe it was supposed to be him playing along as this is my prop. But then he sings in the song like he knows what the song is. So how did he know the song? It doesn't make any sense. It's kind of funny though. Ivy gets jealous when she sees Derek flirting with other women at the party. This is where things start to get a little bit weird for me because she turns to Nick Jonas and starts flirting with him and asks him to take her upstairs. And I'm over here like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Because the only thing that the show mentioned about this guy is that they keep calling him a kid. And they had that joke of, he's 15. No, I'm actually 12. Which I hope was a joke because he better not be 15 or 12 if Ivy is taking him upstairs. Hello, this is Editing Maria interrupting to give a little bit of an addendum. I did watch the scene back, and in the scene, Nick Jonas's character claims to have started on Broadway when he was 8 years old, and that's when he met Tom and Derek. And we know from the show that Tom and Derek last worked together 11 years ago. So I think it's safe to assume that Nick Jonas is probably around 19, or his character is supposed to be in this show. Now, do I still feel icky about somebody of Ivy's age going after somebody with teen in their age? Yes, I do. But I just wanted to make that little note because the problem is solved. We did figure out Lyle's real age. It was just really strange because it's like, Ivy, what are you doing? This is weird. I'm not on her side for this. It's gross. It's just a strange plot point overall, and I didn't get it. Luckily, Ivy and Nick Jonas will run into Eileen, and absolutely nothing happens between the two. But very, very strange moment within this episode. It is also important to note that Tom was set up by his mother in this episode. He was on a date before bringing his date to this Lyle birthday party for this performance, and it seems to be going well so far. Ivy then confronts Derek about flirting with other women, and he replies that he's going to flirt and touch other women if it means to get more investors for the project. Right, so he's awful, so he's terrible, so he's the worst. Exactly what I thought. Leave this man, Ivy. Leave him. We end the episode with Karen and her newfound ensemble friends doing a performance at a bar to Rumor Has It by Adele, where Karen sings a little and they all dance together. Episode 5 starts out with Eileen finding out that Jerry poached one of her employees from her. Michael meets with Julia after rehearsal to give her notes on the Marilyn script. Tom is on a date with the lawyer guy his mom set him up with in the last episode when he gets a phone call from Julia's son, Leo. Leo has been arrested. He was hanging out with his friend who was smoking weed in Central Park, and I guess he's being arrested by association. They're trying to get him on loitering for drugs, but Tom's new lawyer boyfriend gets Leo off, and Tom is very much impressed with lawyer guy John. Karen meets RJ, who is one of Dev's co-workers for the first time. She starts to feel insecure because she always assumed RJ was a man and not a beautiful woman. At this point in time, Dev also has to cancel plans with Karen in order to work on some important work emergency. Julia is pretty much fuming at Leo when she gets home. Leo makes a comment that he couldn't reach her. She claims that she was in a work session. Tom is basically side-eyeing Julia, and then he confronts her after this, where he finds out that Julia's work session was actually her hanging out with Michael Swift. Tom tells Julia, "Your kid was arrested and you missed it because you were too busy flirting with your ex-boyfriend." What are friends for if not to call each other out? Ellis somehow finesses his way into offering Eileen help with computer problems. He's definitely trying to find a way to slither in there and get higher up on the totem pole. Then, new song alert, because at the next rehearsal we get to hear "Let's Be Bad" for the first time. Derek immediately calls out Ivy in front of everyone, saying she's not getting the vibrato right. She's not doing it like Marilyn did. He then asks Karen to show Ivy how it's done, telling her to sing "Happy Birthday, Mr. President" in front of everybody. Karen is hesitant and Derek says, "I've seen you do it." I feel like everybody else is noticing that Karen and Derek at least have seen each other privately in some sort of way. He then tells Karen that maybe she can work with Ivy on it, and Ivy is of course fuming. Ivy and Karen then have to meet later as per Derek's demands. Ivy is not happy to, and I quote, "take singing lessons from a chorus girl." Karen is trying to be nice to Ivy here, trying to make Ivy feel more comfortable and telling Ivy that she doesn't need to feel threatened by her. Ivy absolutely does not like Karen saying this. She then tells Karen, "Don't get ahead of yourself. Marilyn got help all the time, but she knew what she brought to the party, and what she had couldn't be taught." At the next rehearsal, we see that Ivy is starting to crack. There is a lot of whispering going on between the producers, and she's really starting to second guess herself. She even has a moment where she tears up in front of everyone. Oh, it's not looking good for her. She's under a lot of pressure, and I really get where she's coming from. Was she rude to Karen earlier in this episode? Yes, but you can really see the weight of this production on her shoulders and her desperately trying to cling to this leading role, knowing that Karen is right there ready to take her spot should she have any slip-ups. We then get almost a full scene of what the production of Let's Be Bad would look like in the real Marilyn musical. It's probably one of the longer versions of this kind of scene that they've done so far on the show, and it absolutely eats. When the scene is over, everyone is clapping for Ivy because she of course killed it. Ivy is happy for only 0.2 seconds though, because then she watches Derek rush out of the room when he takes a phone call, and she starts to get really discouraged again, second guessing herself. Karen tries to compliment Ivy, and in this situation I get that Karen is just trying to be nice and offer support, but it is absolutely coming from the wrong person and not what Ivy needs coming from her at this point in time. Ivy snaps back at Karen. She says, "Don't condescend to me. I got a lot on my plate and I can handle it, and I don't care what you think or Derek thinks." Ivy, Sam, and Michael are having drinks after work. Ivy can tell that Michael has something on his mind. It's definitely Julia, but at this point in time, she doesn't know that. Sam is feeling frustrated with Tom because he's having a hard time breaking the ice with him. Sam says he's just so gay, to where Ivy replies back, "But Sam, you're gay."
It's just so gay.
Sam, you're gay.
Nick, you're gay. Huh? You're gay.
If you find that dialogue a little clunky and cringy, remember that this did come out in 2012. Later, Karen is complaining to Dev about Ivy, and in this moment, Karen is being the quintessential not like other girls girl. She notes how Ivy is a bombshell and Ivy's always dressing like one, but Karen says that that's just not something she does. Listen, here's where the character of Karen can really get on my nerves sometimes. And it's in instances like this. Honestly, I get it. Remember, this came out in 2012. I feel like there was so much media within the early 2000s and into the 2010s where it glorified the manic pixie dream girl, the not like other girls girl. She's cool because she's not like other girls. And I think this caused an epidemic of so many girls. Pretty much every girl had to go through the not like other girls phase, and it's not fun, but we all went through it. But this is the reason why, is because we see these characters like Karen, who is supposed to be, I guess, the main one the audience is supposed to be rooting for in this scenario. We see that she has this moral superiority over Ivy, over the way that they dress. And it's perfectly fine for Karen to not want to dress like Ivy, and for Karen to have a different style than Ivy, and for Karen to want to dress in a style that's more comfortable and fitting to her. That's perfectly okay. Where it gets annoying is the fact that Karen thinks that she's better than Ivy because she doesn't dress in the same way that Ivy dresses, and she insinuates that Ivy is not as good as a person as her because of the way that she dresses, and insinuates that Ivy, uses the way that she dresses to her advantage. And it's a little bit annoying. Listen, Karen's allowed to dress how she wants, and so is Ivy, and neither of them are better than the other based off of the way that they dress, is what I'm getting at. But here, Karen is kind of like,
I'm not like other girls. I'm not like Ivy. I don't dress like that.
That's where Karen a little bit gets on my nerves. But that was just the times. I feel like there's been way too many not like other girls within media, but especially back when I was younger, it was so prominent. It was like, this is what she wanted to be. What she wanted to be was not like other girls. So I get why the storyline is in there, but I'm so glad that the media is moving past this at least a little bit, as I don't see it as often anymore. Karen then does a cover of James Brown's It's a Man's World. This is one of those times where the cover feels a little bit clunky within the narrative. It feels like sometimes when they have these covers, it's a little bit too on the nose of like the lyrics matching up to the situation. And I get what they were going for, but it's just doesn't fit as seamlessly into the show as their original musical numbers do. Michael stops by Julia's place because he really wants to talk to her before she can turn him away. Leo sees him and invites him to dinner. Ivy shows up to Derek's place drunk and upset over the events that had happened earlier in the day. She says Derek humiliates her, and she says when they're in rehearsal, it's like she doesn't even exist to him. And he doesn't disagree to this. He just says that's how it has to be, and that he's building something. I hate how rude Derek is to Ivy. He's such a terrible person. Ivy obviously wants to have a more real relationship, and Derek is so clearly not interested in Ivy in that way. And it's really disheartening to watch because it's like, I want Ivy to get out of there, but now there's the implications of, if she breaks up with Derek, is he going to punish her by, swapping her out as the lead in the show? Karen goes to an important work dinner for Dev on the Intrepid. RJ has pulled strings for Dev to sit next to the executive editor of the New York Times, which could help Dev land the mayoral press secretary job that he really wants. But because of this, there's no room left at the table for Karen, and they tell Karen she has to sit separately at another table. This is where I really start to dislike Dev, because in what world? Just in the scene before, Dev was telling Karen how important it was that Karen show up at this dinner for him and support him, and she does. But when she gets there, he basically relegates her to a back corner somewhere and doesn't even sit with her. This is the first moment of terrible boyfriend behavior from from Dev, and this is where the beginnings of him becoming unlikable in my eyes start. So now that Karen is off on her own without Dev, she ends up having to sit next to some creepy guy who starts hitting on her and making gross comments about her dress because, of course, she only wore that dress to get male attention, as according to this man. It's gross, it's annoying, but Karen does call out the man in her own small way, and she also finds out that this man claims to be the next mayoral press secretary, which is information that she can later give to Dev. Later that night, Julia tries to set a boundary with Michael. She says, "We both have families now. I don't want to mess that up." Michael is not a person that cares about boundaries, as we have seen, as he is always trying to get Julia alone to talk to her during rehearsal or after rehearsal, even though she is trying to keep him at arm's length. So obviously, he's not cool with this. He tells Julia that he wants to be with her. He does a cover of A Song for You, which is another random cover song thrown into this episode. It's really weird in this scene because he's singing it to Julia, and they end up kissing on the front stoop of Julia's home where her son Leo can see them through the window. Interesting background information about Will Chase, who plays Michael, and Deborah Messing is that they actually met on the set of Smash and then got into a relationship in real life for a couple years. It's kind of funny how life imitates art in a way, especially when talking about Smash, because later on there'll actually be kind of a scandal within the production of Smash in the way that the British director in the show gets into relationships with the actors who are in his production. There was also a British director on the set of Smash who allegedly had an affair with one of the actresses on the show. So I think it's just funny the way that real life almost exactly imitated what was going on the show. And that's all I'll say there. Episode 6 starts out with Eileen meeting another investor who says that he is intrigued to see the workshop. At the workshop, we see that Julia has been a mess with the writing and rearranging of the Marilyn book. It's kind of not really going well for her at the moment. Karen asks, when do they stop changing everything? And Bobby replies, 5 seconds before the performance, which I thought was an incredibly funny line because as somebody who has worked in the entertainment industry, I find it to be very true. Derek is very frustrated with Julia. He tells her she needs to fix the black hole within the script. They only have a week before the workshop performs for the investors. Tom is frustrated with Derek for the way that he is treating Julia. After this little argument, Ellis runs straight to Eileen to rat out all the drama that's happening during the rehearsals. Ivy has been having trouble with her voice on this day. She cannot hit the notes, and then Eileen shows up at the workshop space just in time to hear Ivy's voice cracking. This is not good because the workshop was in a week. A doctor tells Ivy that her voice is inflamed. She had a little bit of a steroid, but she says her body is hypersensitive to steroids, so her best option currently is to opt to go on vocal rest for the day. Derek is not pleased with this. Eileen and Derek talk about replacing Ivy with Karen for the sake of the workshop, but Tom stands up for Ivy. At home, Derek pressures Ivy into taking the steroids. He scares her by mentioning replacing her with Karen in order to not waste a day of rehearsal. The next day, Ivy tells Derek at rehearsal that she did take the steroids, but she's freaking out because her body is not really responding well to the side effects. Derek doesn't really care about Ivy or the side effects of the steroids. He only cares that Ivy's voice is good enough to sing and perform. Ivy is pushing herself because she is now determined to not go on vocal rest, even though that's what she deemed was the best option for her own body. Jessica asks Karen to cover for her at a bar mitzvah gig that she can no longer go to. It actually used to be Ivy's gig that Ivy passed along to Jessica, and now Jessica is passing along to Karen. This is a little bit of important information for later. Ellis once again shows back up at Eileen's office to tell her that rehearsals are going well now that Ivy took the steroids, and then he lingers, asking Eileen if she needs anything. I kind of like his ambition, but I don't know, this character is just really funny to me in what he slowly becomes, but we will get there. Michael, the man who doesn't know what boundaries are, keeps trying to get Julia to see him outside of rehearsals, but she keeps shutting him down. Later, Julia admits to Tom that she kissed Michael, and then Ellis takes Eileen to a dive bar, and she is having the time of her life here. I absolutely love Eileen, and I love that she is living it up at the dive bar. She even plays an arcade game. Back at home, in another weird clunky cover, we get a strange scene of Ivy singing Who You Are by Jessie J as she contemplates taking the steroids and worries over the health of her voice. She then hallucinates an image of Karen dressed as Marilyn Monroe in her mirror. Because hallucinations is a side effect of the steroid, Ivy calls Sam and Tom over because she's freaking out about the side effects that she's going through. Tom, seeing the state that Ivy's in, gets worried, so he secretly texts Karen on the side that they might need her tomorrow and to be discreet. No boundaries Michael calls Julia's home phone number. Julia's husband answers, and Julia's family really likes Michael because they obviously don't know about Julia's past affair with him. So Julia's husband is chumming it up on the phone with him. Julia is freaking out that Michael would contact her at home like this. We also see on Michael's side of things, he's lying to his wife, telling her that he's just talking to his sister. He then asks Julia to meet him in secret later. At Ivy's place, it seems like at this point of the show, we're getting a romantic setup for Sam and Tom, as Tom refers to Sam as the straightest chorus boy he's ever seen, to which Sam reports, "You think I'm straight?" This is funny to me because even in this moment, Tom does not think that Sam is joking, so he still assumes that Sam is straight. The reason why Sam seems so straight according to Tom, and why Sam thinks Tom is so gay according to him, is because Sam likes sports and Tom doesn't. They're playing into the stereotype of
gay people can't be interested in sports.
But at least they have this character of Sam who is gay, who is not the stereotypical gay person. So that was probably pretty big at the time to represent somebody like that. At the bar mitzvah, Karen sings a cover of Florence and the Machine's Shake It Out. She apparently didn't know Hava Nagila, so some of the bar mitzvah people are side-eyeing her, knowing that she wasn't the original performer. She gets all the kids on the dance floor to shake it out, which is a crazy song choice because they have all these like 13-year-old kids and they're all just dancing like this the entire time. Quite the funny scene, but this scene is actually very interesting because in the BuzzFeed article that I mentioned earlier, one of the crew members specifically talked about this scene, saying that it was supposed to be the audience seeing Karen fail. She wasn't supposed to do a good job at the bar mitzvah. Basically, later, as we'll come to find out, somebody kind of notices and discovers that Karen is talented based off of her singing in the bar mitzvah scene. But originally, it was supposed to be that she is a complete train wreck at the bar mitzvah and she doesn't know what she's doing. She hasn't done a gig before, but somebody liked her voice. But instead, the showrunner didn't want to have Karen fail so badly. So that's where we get this awkward shake it out scene where suddenly all the kids are brought to the dance floor by the power of Karen's voice and they're all awkwardly dancing to shake it out. And it makes it like, oh, she did it. She pulled it together. And it just makes the scene not make as much sense in the original form of it, which was supposed to be she was a disaster, but she had a good voice, and not she pulled it together and the thing was good, whatever. But this is just one of probably many instances in where there was contention going on with how the show was being written. And that's why I wanted to bring that up. So later at the bar mitzvah, one of the men who had organized or was in charge of the event ends up giving Karen a card of one of his friends saying to call that guy later on. We will find out in the next episode that it's a big time record company executive. But also I had to mention this because there's another connection back to this channel, because the guy at the bar mitzvah who gives Karen the card is played by Jeffrey Cantor of Ellison in Daredevil fame. And as we know on this channel, I am a Daredevil lover. I did a whole video about Daredevil season 3. There's connections everywhere for those who can see them. Karen gets another text from Tom later on saying, Ivy good, no worries. She got her hopes up for nothing. Ivy's going to be performing at rehearsal tomorrow. At her super secret rendezvous with Michael, Julia comes in telling Michael that he can't ever call or text her at home ever again. Michael questions why Julia would offer him this role if she didn't want him to take it. Julia says that it had been 5 years and she thought she could handle it. They hook up. Obviously. There's another little C plot going on of Tom and his new lawyer guy that he's dating, but is not his boyfriend yet. One of the lawyer guy's buddies mentioned something about him just coming out a year ago. Tom gets nervous about this. He questions him later on in the episode. And lawyer guy John reassures Tom, saying that he has come out many times over the years to his mom, but his mom wouldn't listen to him, which reassures Tom. Either way, they're putting these sprinkles here and there, letting us know that Tom and lawyer guy John are probably not going to work out, especially now that you could see that they're also planting seeds of Tom and Sam. At the next rehearsal, Derek questions Ivy about her voice. She confronts him by asking him, doesn't he want to know how she's doing? Then she says she's doing fine because thankfully Tom and Sam came over to her place to help take care of her the night before. She says they actually care about her and they actually love her. These points are not getting through to Derek because he absolutely does not care about the well-being of Ivy. He only cares about the well-being of her voice. So even though Ivy is trying to make a point here, the point is not coming across. Karen shows Jessica the card that was given to her at the bar mitzvah, and Jessica gets excited because it's Bobby Raskin, who we will later find out to be a record company executive guy. Ivy overhears this and she's super annoyed. She was unaware that Jessica gave her gig to Karen, and now she's a little bit jealous that Karen went to this gig that was originally supposed to be hers, and now she has the eyes of a music label looking at her. To Ivy, it seems like Karen has a lot of things just sort of fall into her lap, and she doesn't really have to try to get these great opportunities. Meanwhile, Ivy has been trying and working for 10 years. We know that's not exactly the case, and that's not exactly true because Karen has also been working really hard and she has yet to even get a role on Broadway. So Karen does not feel this, but in Ivy's mind, she's just noticing this new girl Karen come in who no one has ever heard of before, and she's already getting looked at for a leading role. She's already getting looked at by a record company, and it feels like things are just kind of coming so easy to her. Ivy, being annoyed, makes a snarky comment to Sam saying that she should have got Karen fired on the first day, and she says Marilyn would have. At the rehearsal, we see the cast perform History is Made at Night. Derek stops the scene to give Ivy some rude notes, and then we see Ivy finally have enough, put her foot down, and stand up to herself. She kind of makes a big scene in front of everyone, but also Derek was continuing to humiliate her in front of everyone. She even tells Derek maybe he can try giving her notes without having to humiliate her in front of everyone. As she's storming out, she yells that she needs to stop sleeping with men who are such narcissistic pricks. Oh, and you're not that good looking. Let's ask the audience, And let's all stand and applaud because Derek needed to be humbled. And I love Ivy standing up for herself to humble him. Although I don't know if this fully got through to Derek. Once again, he really doesn't care. He lets this happen and just keeps moving along with his day. But I do like this moment for Ivy. Eileen goes back to her new favorite dive bar to meet with the producer. He tells her to put him on the list for the workshop. Eileen is happy. She looks at the bartender and goes, "We like 4 more martinis, please." 5. 1 for you. Yes, there is a little romantic tension going on between Eileen and the bartender guy, and I love this for her. I'm back with a wardrobe change because it is a new day, and we are going to finish this recap. Episode 7 starts off with Karen going to a recording studio to record a cover of Brighter Than a Sun by Colby Calais for Bobby Raskin. Tom walks in on Julia and Michael making out before rehearsal, but who else do we think is there? If you guess Ellis lurking around the corner to eavesdrop on them, you would be absolutely right. Also, throughout this episode, there will be a heating problem at the building that they are workshopping in. Eileen is very upset with the building manager because the space is way too warm and the investors are coming to watch the workshop tomorrow. Record company guy Bobby Raskin calls Karen and wants to meet with her right now. She takes an hour off rehearsal to go back to the recording studio and meet with him. Ivy's mother comes to watch rehearsal on this day, and in the universe of Smash, Ivy's mom is a icon and Broadway legend, Lee Conroy, and she is being played by another icon and legend, Bernadette Peters. Ivy has a lot of issues with her mother, so she doesn't usually tell people who her mom is. Everyone is starstruck when Lee Conroy comes to rehearsal and they immediately beg her to sing Everyone's Coming Up Roses, which she does. And this scene is kind of iconic because Bernadette Peters sang Everything's Coming Up Roses 8 times a week when she was in the Broadway revival of Gypsy, for which she was nominated for a Tony Award. It's these kind of covers that I really would like to see more of throughout Smash. Bring in more Broadway guest roles and let these Broadway performers perform some Broadway covers. I think people would eat it up more than a Rihanna cover or a Kobe Calais cover. On a bit of an unrelated side note, I think Glee kind of overshadowed this song for me, which is crazy to say, but indeed, I cannot hear this song without thinking of Kurt Hummel singing, "I had a dream, Dad. I dreamed it for you, Dad." I mean, that's just what the lyrics to the song are now within my headcanon because of Glee. So we can all thank Glee for that.
I dream about you, baby.
I dreamed it for you, Dad. It wasn't for me, Dad.
Michael's wife and kid come to see him at rehearsal, which freaks Julia out. She sees Michael's family and she's immediately gotta go, Serena van der Woodsen style.
I have to go home.
In fact, I have to go. I have to go.
There's somewhere I have to go. Sorry, but I have to go.
Mind that my daughter has to go.
Ellis rats out Julia to Eileen, unloading all the tea about Julia and Michael and why Julia probably left rehearsal that day. Eileen stops Ellis. She doesn't like where things are going. She's not going to pretend that this information isn't useful, but if she hears that Ellis repeated this to anybody else, he will never work in this town again. And yes, she literally says, "You will never work in this town again." What I find really funny about the writing of Smash as the season continues is the way that we see more and more sort of cliche phrases pop up throughout the show. Such things like, "You will never work in this town again," making it into the script as that specific phrase just feels so funny to me, and I don't really know why. When Julia gets home, she catches her son Leo and his friend smoking in his room. Leo, being angry and upset, tells Julia that she sucks, indicating to her that he knows about her affair with Michael. It seems like Ivy's mom, Bernadette Peters, does not know how to talk to her in any way that doesn't put her on edge. It's like she wants to make Ivy Ivy more stressed out, even going as far as making an offhand comment saying she doesn't know how Ivy's going to be able to pull off the role of Marilyn. We find out that Ivy's legendary mother has a Tony Award, and this puts everything into perspective of what kind of pressure Ivy is under to live up to her mom. Ivy ends up taking sleeping pills to try and get some rest before the big workshop performance. Eileen is back at her favorite dive bar with Ellis complaining about the air condition and plumbing problems within the building. Bartender Nick overhears and tells Eileen that he can help. He knows a guy. Bobby Raskin wants to meet with Karen, but it is workshop day. Her ensemble friends encourage her to go as they see a meeting with Bobby Raskin as a much better opportunity than being in a workshop for $200 a week for a show that's probably not going to go anywhere. They tell her that nobody would even miss her because she's only in the chorus. Julia tells Michael that Leo knows about their affair and now the situation is really bad. Ivy gets stuck in an elevator because the building has been having maintenance issues, which causes Derek to ask Julia to read a scene with Michael to go through it. And now people weren't really loving the writing within the scene, and Julia was still trying to work through rewriting it, but in this moment with Michael, Julia and Michael kind of get into a real sort of argument and go off page of Julia's original script, causing Derek to think that Julia and Michael were improvising. And yeah, he actually likes these lines a lot better than the original ones. He likes the changes they made. Checking back in with Tom, he's complaining to Ivy about Sam. He's complaining because Sam is too straight. This is where Ivy finally sets Tom straight, saying, "Buddy, he's gay." Ivy is extremely nervous before the workshop. Her mother being there does not help, as she feels as though her mom has always been trying to undermine her. Her jealousy for Karen is also not helping, as she's witnessing Karen get another really amazing opportunity that seems to be handed to her on a silver platter, and Ivy is questioning everything. She doesn't know if she can do this. Nick and his maintenance connections are working to try and fix the building issues before the workshop starts, and Eileen invites Nick to stay and watch the workshop. Ivy's mom shows up fashionably late to the workshop when it's already starting. She causes a bit of a scene and everybody there starts clapping for her. This only causes Ivy to get more distracted. Then it's finally time for the workshop performance for the potential investors. In my opinion, Ivy is absolutely crushing it at this workshop, and Karen is also there in the ensemble, imagining herself in the role as Marilyn. Ivy's mom watching actually looks hopeful and proud of Ivy. There are a couple times when Ivy literally stumbles, as there's a few missteps here and there throughout the workshop, but in my opinion, I think they recovered pretty well, and nothing could be worse or as embarrassing as Karen's stumble at the end of Act 1 when she literally falls off a chair and causes a bit of a scene. During intermission, Derek tells Ivy that she needs to focus and to get her head in the game. He's basically saying that she's not doing well. Tom is very upset with the way that Derek is talking to Ivy, especially in the middle of a performance, as this isn't really going to help moving forward with the rest of the performance. It's only going to put Ivy even more so in her own head. After the intermission, we get to hear another original song on Lexington and 52nd Street. This one is sung by Michael Swift, and in this scene, Michael is imagining himself singing to only Julia. I think it is also important to note that during this entire performance, it is very hot in this workshop room. The investors are hot, and we can only imagine what the performers are working through. The air conditioning finally gets fixed, but the workshop is just ending, so it's a little bit too late. The other ensemble members are making fun of Karen because she did decide to forego her meeting with Bobby Raskin in order to perform at this workshop. After the performance, Ivy confronts her mom. She accuses her mom of sucking up all the light like a black hole. Ivy's mom can't even come up with one kind word to say about Ivy, and she's always saying these offhand, very critical comments about her performances. Ivy accuses her mother of being just like Marilyn's mom. After this, we get a little more of a glimpse into Ivy's mother's side of the situation. She apologizes. Ivy's mother admits that it's hard to watch Ivy perform because she never wanted Ivy to become a performer like herself. She knows how hard and heartbreaking that the industry can be, and she doesn't want to have to watch her own daughter go through those things. She's worried that Ivy might get hurt in the same way that she was hurt in the past within the industry. She also says for years, she watched as people have overlooked Ivy's talent, but she knows her day will come because she knows that her daughter is a star. After the workshop, Derek, Julia, Tom, and Eileen are having a meeting. It's not looking good. It seems like none of the investors really had faith in what they saw, and they're kind of back to square one again with the investors. The creative team is speculating if maybe it could have even been because the room was so hot that the investors couldn't even focus on the performance, or they were uncomfortable. Eileen is positive that they have something good. They might just need to regroup and rethink a few things. She suggests maybe finding named talent to play the role of Marilyn. She starts mentioning and listing off big names of talent that could play Marilyn, and Tom says stop right when she gets to name dropping Sutton Foster, which I found particularly funny because Tom is played by Christian Borle, who famously was married to Sutton Foster between the years of 2006 and 2009. And I thought it was crazy. Ex-wife mentioned. Derek also thinks that maybe they should go with somebody who is a bigger name. Tom stands up for Ivy, saying that Derek is just mad because Ivy called him out in front of everyone, and now he's using her as a scapegoat because the performance didn't go well. Tom and Julia tell Eileen that they think Michael Swift is actually the problem, and they should find somebody else to play the role of DiMaggio. Obviously, Tom doesn't think this, but he is standing on Julia's side because they want to get Michael out of the production so Julia can focus better, which is crazy, which is why they need HR. Maybe people from the creative team shouldn't be dating the performers if their personal lives are getting to be such a distraction that they actually have to kick one of the performers out of the show in order for Julia to feel better. It's not a good look. At the end of the episode, Julia assures Leo that she's firing Michael, and Leo breaks down. Episode 8 starts off with Julia worrying that the show might be dead because Eileen hasn't contacted her or said anything since the initial workshop performance. Julia's husband Frank tries to cheer her up by doing a cover of Three Little Birds, except for he's playing it on Rock Band, and it just made me think how much I miss Rock Band and Guitar Hero, and we as a society need to bring it back. Bring back playing Rock Band and Guitar Hero with your friends. Ellis drops something off at Eileen's apartment, and he once again lingers and asks her if she needs anything. Oh, he wants to be her assistant so bad. Eileen's daughter Katie then shows up. New character alert. Derek has a meeting with Karen. He's telling her that they are talking to a new songwriter in order to come up with a new approach for Marilyn, but Tom and Julia obviously cannot know. Derek wants Karen to sing the demo of the song. Alice is reporting back to Tom. Apparently he only went over to Eileen's place to have an excuse to try and snoop about and get information regarding the future of the show. Alice mentioned something about overhearing a phone call where Eileen was talking to Derek about Karen, which makes Tom a little bit nervous. He gives Ellis another excuse to go to Eileen's home again the next day. Michael meets Julia at a park. He brings his family there. Julia wanted to tell Michael that she doesn't really know what's going on with Marilyn at this point, but if it does move forward, he's basically fired. Michael said that he figured, and if they didn't fire him, he would probably quit anyways because his family is what's most important to him, and he's been really stupid. Just remember this moment for later, and remember what Michael says about his family being important to him for later. Dev had to cancel plans with Karen in order to meet up with Art RJ for work. RJ tells Dev that the potential press secretary guy, Denby, the guy that Karen met at the work party, who is basically competing with Dev for the press secretary job, apparently has evidence against him of sexual harassment, and RJ says that she will let Dev leak the information. Dev is contemplating whether or not he should. Eileen's daughter Katie informs her that Jerry put a bunch of money into her trust fund, and this sent up warning signals to her because she knew that Jerry was probably doing something to try and mess with Eileen. It's the reason why she came home. Tom's lawyer, not boyfriend John, is still trying to help Leo with the legal troubles following him from the loitering for drugs in the park incident. Karen is uncomfortable with the whole situation of recording a song for Marilyn behind Tom and Julia's back. Derek tries to smooth everything over and convince Karen to do it by basically saying that he doesn't want Tom and Julia to freak out before he figures out what he even wants to do. So Derek takes Karen to meet with music producer and frontman of One Republic, Ryan Tedder, who is indeed playing himself. Lawyer John is in court trying to get Leo's charges dismissed. The family walks out of court happy, and it looks like things are going well with Julia and her family again. Karen sings another original song, but this one is actually written by Ryan Tedder in real life, Touch Me, and it's just not the vibe at all, in my opinion. The show really wants me to think that this is the direction the Marilyn musical could have gone, and apparently the character of Derek really likes this direction for the musical, but in my opinion, it doesn't fit at all with what they were going for regarding the other songs and the script, and honestly with the vibes of Marilyn at all. It just seems so out of place, and it's so 2012 pop song, if that gives you anything. I mean, it was written by Ryan Tedder probably in the year of 2012, and it sounds like a pop song written by Ryan Tedder in the year of 2012. It does not sound like a song for a Marilyn Monroe Broadway musical. Katie is meeting up with Eileen and Jerry to yell at Jerry because she knows that Eileen needs money, and somehow Jerry has a bunch and Eileen has nothing. Eileen says she doesn't need his money and then says one of my favorite quotes from her, which is, "And by the way, it's not his money, it's my money. And it's not his business, it's my business." Because he hasn't produced a play in 10 years, which really gives us more of an understanding of Eileen's role within the company, even though she got not much respect for it because she was simply Jerry's wife, and everybody credits Jerry to producing all these plays and musicals, but in fact, it was Eileen doing much of the creative work. During this scene, while Eileen and Jerry are arguing, Katie notices who lurking behind the door but none other than Ellis. And this is one of the only times that somebody really calls Ellis out for listening with his ear pressed up against the door and eavesdropping on people. Katie opens the door and says, "Can I help you?" Finally, somebody has put this kid in his place about the constant eavesdropping and lurking around the corner on people. While he's at Eileen's place, Ellis decides to answer a phone call on behalf of Eileen because he really wants to be her assistant. It's Derek, and he says to tell Eileen that they're on for tomorrow. Ivy has been really depressed after the workshop, especially because none of the performers besides Karen have really heard anything about what's going on. Ivy's ensemble friends take her to a bowling alley to try and cheer her up. They agree with her that it's not fair that the performers do put so much work and effort into these workshops for so little pay, and then the creatives and the higher ups don't even have the decency to call them and tell them what's going on regarding the workshop. There's this moment where they're all going around saying, "I hate the theater," and then Ivy says, "I love the theater." And in these moments, I really love Ivy. I love her passion for the theater. I love her work. I just wish she wouldn't always do some of the things that she does. Ivy and her friends then do a cover of Dance to the Music while running around this bowling alley. Welcome back. I've just seen a face seen from across the universe. Back at Dev's work, his rival and enemy, Paul Denby, is already acting like he has the press secretary job. Ellis runs into Ivy later and tells her that Derek is up to something with Karen. Ivy says, "Oh God, if they're gonna replace me with a star, that's bad enough, but Karen Cartwright is nobody." Also, this is another spot where I really don't understand the motivations of the character Ellis. I don't understand why he's pushing for Ivy so much. I wish we could have maybe seen some background within this motivation for his character where we see that he really envisions Ivy as Marilyn, or he really thinks that Ivy is the best one for the role, because up until this point, all we know is that he wants to work his way up the ladder within the industry. And so you would think that he would want what is best for this overall show. And so I'm surprised that he's not on board with bringing in a star for the show, because that would essentially bring in more money and more investors over Ivy, even though Ivy is really talented. Because as we will see as the season continues, that Ellis is really team Ivy over the show in many cases. Like, he will put the show in jeopardy to try and help Ivy out. It's kind of strange. Now that Ivy knows about Karen and Derek being up to something, Bobby is fishing for information. Karen is wondering how Bobby found out about her working with Derek, and Bobby reveals that a couple people already know. Ellis's girlfriend warns him that if Tom finds out that he was messing with Ivy, Tom is going to fire him. Ellis says that he doesn't want to work for Tom anyway. He says, and I quote, "He's an artist. He's a loser. Artists get treated like dirt. I want to be a producer." Dev and his co-workers have investigated and found evidence that not only was Paul Denby a sexual harasser, but he's basically a child predator. Dev tells RJ that he wants to release this information, and Dev and his co-workers then celebrate being able to take Paul Denby down as Karen walks into their apartment. Karen obviously is insecure because she happened to walk in while Dev was hugging RJ, and then when she asks Dev what is going on, he says that he can't really tell her yet, which also annoys her. Eileen, Tom, and Julia go to Ryan Tedder's place to find out what this mysterious thing that Derek had been working on, and who is also there lurking around the corner. You guessed it, Ellis, and he brought Ivy with him. Karen then performs Ryan Tedder's Touch Me for the creatives. It is totally 2010s music video vibes. They even have strobe lights and everything, but it is definitely not the Marilyn Monroe musical vibe, in my opinion. Tom, Julia, and even Katie, Eileen's daughter, look appalled during and after this performance. Remember, Ivy and Ellis are also watching from the corner. Derek says after the performance that they're not looking to do an entirely new take, just break open what they have. I would have to disagree with Derek here, as what he shows the creatives is definitely an entirely new take. It is not in any way, in my opinion, related to what they had been doing. Tom and Julia are obviously not happy with the entire situation. Eileen does say that her and Derek were afraid that they would be resistant, and that's why they didn't tell them. But you would be resistant too if you were writing songs for a musical and then your producer and director went behind your back to have Ryan Tedder write a song instead. Katie confronts Eileen after this performance, and she says, "You can't just turn into dad, Mom." This causes Eileen to see the light. She agrees she made a terrible mistake and starts apologizing to everyone. Ellis then pops out of the corner that he was lurking in and starts speaking on behalf of Eileen, saying what she means to say is she'll meet with everyone tomorrow morning to discuss the next steps. Julia rightfully asks, how did he get here? And I don't think any of them are really looking deep enough into that question, because why is he there and how did he get there? And why are we not concerned that this guy, who at this point is not Eileen's assistant yet, why is he following her around and why is he speaking for the production? It seems so out of line, but Eileen obviously doesn't care at this point in time, because after this is all over, she invites Ellis back in her car with her, and it looks like Ellis is going to be Eileen's new assistant moving forward. Ivy appears to confront Karen, and she's really going for making Karen feel guilty. She even says, "I understand why you stabbed Tom and Julia in the back like that." Derek and Tom argue, and we finally get a little bit more of a glimpse into their beef, why Tom and Derek just seem to hate each other so much. it actually turns out that they used to be friends, and 11 years ago, they actually worked together. A critic who Tom claims Derek had in his pocket gave Derek's direction of the show they worked on a good review, while giving Tom's songs a very bad review. Tom was hurt because he said Derek used to be his friend, but then after that, he went around to every single theater in the city and trash-talked Tom to all of them. Derek then makes a bit of a homophobic comment to Tom because he's nothing if not the worst. Tom calls him out on this, and then Tom also calls out that the critic that Tom said Derek had in his pocket was only in his pocket because he was having an affair with Derek's father. Derek thinks that this was a low blow from Tom, even considering all the things that he has done and said in the past is crazy. Derek then also says that Tom's songs are too nice and not provocative enough for the Marilyn musical. The next day, in a meeting with the creatives, Eileen informs Tom and Julia that she does want to move forward with the Marilyn musical, but they are going to need to have a star as the lead. She also tells Tom and Julia they need to come up with a title. On his way out of the meeting, Tom sees Ellis in Eileen's office and makes a joke about Ellis working for Eileen now, to which Ellis replies, "Actually, I do." Then he basically quits working for Tom, thanking Tom for the opportunity. Tom is stunned, and Julia is, of course, still annoyed with Ellis. She says she would say good riddance, but they're still stuck with him. Back over with Dev's work drama, apparently the evidence that they had against Paul Denby wasn't enough to get him fired. In fact, it seems as though the chief of staff is in with him and made all of the evidence disappear. Dev's co-workers say that Denby is basically untouchable. Tom has to sadly break the news to Ivy that they are going with a star to play Marilyn. It is absolutely heartbreaking, as in movies, in TV, and in the world of theater, it seems as though lately every show just wants to put in a big named famous person in order to get people to watch, get people to come see the show. And I find it so annoying because there is a whole entire world of talented, unknown actors that are getting passed over because big studios and executives think this is what's going to bring people into the seats. Maybe I'm just a little bit mad over some recent casting news regarding the Beach Read adaptation. If you know, you know, but I really wish that studios would stop thinking that the only way a project is going to be successful if there is names attached. I'm sick and tired of seeing the same 5 actors and nepo babies and social media influencers be in these movies instead of some people that are much more well suited for different roles, if that makes any sense. And now I will get off my soapbox and say that I feel bad for Ivy Lynn. Ivy is sadly singing "Let Me Be Your Star" back at home. Derek shows up at her house and compliments her, saying that she was better than good. Boo tomato. I'm screaming at my TV for Ivy not to fall for this, but unfortunately she does, and her and Derek get back together. Ivy, stand up and don't fall for his manipulations. He can't just come over and say one nice thing to you and now you're back on board with this relationship. Stay away from this man. Get away from her. Get a job. It is a tough time to be an Ivy liker and a Derek hater right now. Episode 9 starts out with Tom finding out that his lawyer not boyfriend is going to some Republican fundraiser, and it turns out lawyer not boyfriend John is actually a Republican. This is news to Tom and will put another sprinkle of doubt into this relationship. Remember, I said they're moving towards a Tom and Sam storyline. Julia's husband Frank finds some sheet music for a song within her room. This will be important for a little bit later. Ivy is having lunch with Sam, and Sam finds out that Ivy has actually been taking a lot of medications recently for anxiety, for sleep, etc. And Sam is a little bit worried for her and tells her to be careful. The creatives are meeting again to discuss potential stars to play the role of Marilyn. Derek tells Eileen that he doesn't think the show is ready. Eileen, in another iconic moment for her, says, "Oh please, you had a fight with your collaborators and lost. Get over it. Yes, I love her. Put that man in his place. Derek says he's not chasing stars until there's a finished script. He thinks Tom and Julia need more time to write the show, and he says they can do another workshop in a year. Of course, Eileen doesn't like this, as she has been pushing to move the show forward as quickly as possible. After this, Eileen tells Ellis to get her in contact with Doug Hughes, the director. If Derek doesn't want to do this, she'll move forward without him. And she should. Ivy had an audition, but she shows up late because she got stuck in a subway. When she gets there, she runs into Karen coming out of the same audition, and she overhears the casting directors talking about how Karen was perfect for the role. Karen later finds out that she got the part. It's for an orange juice commercial. Julia encourages Tom to give his lawyer-not boyfriend John a chance after finding out that he is Republican. Clap if you agree.
Clap if you're against it. Oh.
Then we are blessed with another original song, but this time it is for Tom and Julia's other fictional musical, Heaven on Earth, as Ivy is back performing in the ensemble of Heaven on Earth. And who is starring in Heaven on Earth, you may ask? It's Tony Award winner Norbert Leo Butz, and he's playing himself. Exactly. Ellis is using Eileen's ex-assistant, the one that Jerry poached from her, to get names of potential connections to be able to help Eileen find named talent that they are looking for. Julia comes home to Frank playing the sheet music that he found in their room. He can tell by the lyrics that the song is pretty personal to Julia, and he suspects cheating. He questions her about it, and she replies, "It's over," confirming his assumptions, and he also replies, "It was Michael, wasn't it?" He's very upset. Karen is filming her orange juice commercial. It's not like she thought it would be. She's in a green screen morph suit and on an all green screen set. Frank then goes to confront Michael out on the street. Michael says, "It was over a long time ago. It should have never started back up again. That's on me." Oh, Frank is now reeling with this new information that not only had Julia cheated with Michael, but she had also cheated with him a long time ago, and he never knew about it. He then punches Michael. Ellis takes it upon himself to meet with an agent on Eileen's behalf. This guy, Randall, works for a famous movie star, Rebecca Duvall. Eileen has her meeting with Doug Hughes. Fun fact, Doug Hughes is playing himself, as he is a Tony Award-winning director with an extensive career directing many Broadway and off-Broadway plays. Critic Michael Riedel then walks in and sees Eileen having her meeting with Doug Hughes. Now, Michael Riedel is another person who is also playing himself. He's been a critic and Broadway columnist for the New York Post. It becomes apparent that Eileen set up this whole situation. She wants Michael to write about her meeting with Doug Hughes so the information gets back to Derek. Ivy is not doing too great, so her ensemble friends take her out for drinks to try and cheer her up. Sam calls Tom and said that he should come and comfort Ivy too. Tom is unsure about where his friendship with Ivy is at this moment in time, considering that they fired her as the lead in Maryland. After he gets there, Tom doesn't even really get the chance to talk to Ivy because Bobby, the pot stirrer that he is, brings up Karen in front of Ivy, which is most certainly not the right time, and it causes Ivy to be upset and to leave the bar. At home, Karen realizes that she has Ivy's sunglasses, and they must have got swapped when they bumped into each other at the audition earlier. Ivy is at her place realizing the same information. We see her toss out Karen's sunglasses and then take a bunch of pills. At the same time, Derek is at Ivy's place. He gets a phone call because Michael Riedel, in fact, did write about Eileen's meeting with Doug Hughes. Derek is not happy about this. Derek then goes and barges into Eileen's office. Eileen says, "I believe in Marilyn. I'm not apologizing to anyone. Now are you in or out?" Derek relents, and Eileen's plan of scaring Derek back into working for the show worked out perfectly for her. Honestly, Eileen is probably the coolest character in this whole show. Ivy is staring at her pill bottle before going on to another performance for Heaven on Earth. And I just want to point out this shot in the show because I think it's absolutely stunning. And I wish we got more shots like this. Ivy is looking in the mirror and there is a much smaller mirror next to her that is also magnifying her face. And her face card in this shot is absolutely unbelievable. Ellis brings some songs over to Rebecca Duvall's agent assistant Randall, and still at this point in time, Eileen and everyone else is unaware that Ellis is going out of his way to do these things. Ellis wants to know what he has to do to get Rebecca on board with playing Marilyn, and then he sleeps with the agent. Tom then decides he's going to try and show up at Lawyer John's Republican fundraiser, even though he hates Republicans. Oh, okay. Meanwhile, Ivy is not doing okay. She's acting completely under the influence on stage from all the pills and possibly drinking too. She's basically just doing whatever she wants in the middle of the performance. She's going to get herself fired. She ends up tripping and falling face first onto the stage, and Norbert Leo Butz has to yell at her to get off the stage. At the same time, Karen is showing up at the Heaven on Earth stage door to return Ivy's sunglasses to her. This is absolutely horrible timing, as the last thing Ivy needs right now is to see Karen. As Ivy is running off the stage after getting yelled at by Norbert Leo Butz, she sees that Karen is there and she's upset that Karen saw her literally flop on stage. Ivy is really upset and she tells Karen that she's nothing special. There are thousands of other girls just like her, and you think this will never happen to you? This was supposed to be my time. Karen tells Ivy that she never even got to do Marilyn even once, so maybe Ivy should stop complaining about how hard her life is. Ivy tells Karen that's because Karen didn't want it enough. She didn't fight for it hard enough. She didn't put enough on the line. Karen then replies with, "You're right. I didn't sleep with Derek. Trust me, it's not because he didn't ask. You weren't his first choice." Oof. Frank is now packing his things and leaving Julia. He mentions to her about before and how it happened with Michael before. You know, the other part of the affair that he was unaware of. Tom leaves the Republican Party early in order to go take care of things after hearing about Ivy's performance in Heaven on Earth. Karen is basically babysitting Ivy, knowing that she is not in the state to be running around alone in New York City. Karen buys Ivy alcohol, and now they are both drunk and wandering around the city. And it actually becomes a really cute scene as we see Karen and Ivy laughing and having fun together for probably the first time ever. Karen and Ivy then do a cover of Cheers, Drink to That by Rihanna in the middle of Times Square in one of my least favorite covers of the entire show, with also very specific song lyrics to match the situation. It's so out of place. I want less of this and more of the Broadway style performances and original music. Also, it's important to note that during this Rihanna cover, Ivy is still in her costume from Heaven on Earth, so she is singing this in the middle of Times Square dressed as an angel. What are we doing? What's going on here? This is definitely not the show that I thought it would be in episode 1. Karen brings Ivy home at the end of the night, and Ivy says, "We're not best friends now, okay?" And Karen replies that she knows. Sam and Tom have been hanging out all night after they both showed up at Ivy's place to comfort her before finding out that Ivy was out with Karen. They're hitting it off, and Sam even pays for Tom's meal. Ellis tells Eileen that he wants to be a co-producer because he got Rebecca Duvall on board, and if they land her, he should get the co-producer credit. Whoa, 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 whoa. He thinks he could just walk in, do one thing, and become the co-producer. The ambition is admirable. But Eileen puts him in his place, saying, "Are you going to negotiate her contract? Are you going to sell her to investors? Are you going to address her creative concerns? There's more to producing than casting." She has a point. I mean, he did help get the casting, but there's so much more that he won't do moving forward. Honestly, maybe he should just negotiate and get a casting credit. Julia then meets up with Michael and sees that Frank has punched him. Michael also lets us know that his wife is still unaware of the whole affair. Julia says what she did exploded her whole life like a bombshell. Interesting. This gives her the idea to finally title the show Bombshell.
Hey, that's the name of the show.
In episode 10, we open with what looks like a table read in front of more potential investors, except that their star is late. Apparently, Rebecca Duvall is not even in the same country. She's not going to make the table read. The investors tell Eileen that she's got 2 days to get Rebecca Duvall to show if she wants to keep them invested in the production. At the mayor's office, Dev finds out that his rival Paul Denvey officially got the job as press secretary. He hasn't told Karen yet. Tom, Julia, and Derek tell Karen they want her to understudy the role of Marilyn. They need someone to stand in for Rebecca until she gets there, and they do not want to lose any days of rehearsal. At home, Derek tells Ivy about Karen understudying for the role of Marilyn. He also tells Ivy that there was nothing he can do after her performance in Heaven on Earth. He can't even get her into the chorus. Karen shows up at Dev's work to tell him her understudy news. They do that thing where Dev says that his big news doesn't matter, and so he never tells Karen about what happened with the press secretary job. Sam and Tom are hanging out while Tom and his lawyer not boyfriend are on the way to see a Broadway show. And John is noticing that there is a bit of a connection between Sam and Tom. In a strange twist of events, Ivy is the one who is seen lurking around the corner, watching as all of her friends and Tom arrive before rehearsals for Bombshell. In another very strange cover scene, Ivy then does a cover of Kelly Clarkson's Breakaway while wandering around the city and imagining herself on stage. At this point, the show has gone full camp. This scene had me cackling. It doesn't fit, but maybe it does because at this point the show is full camp. She imagines herself dressed as Marilyn and walking into Bombshell rehearsals in slow motion to everybody applauding for her. This is getting so unserious. Meanwhile, Eileen is having a hard time getting Rebecca Duvall to New York. There's been some travel issues and she's stuck in Cuba. Everyone is really antsy because Rebecca Duvall has never done theater before, so they assume she's going to need all the rehearsals she can get. In rehearsal, Karen is getting yelled at by Derek. She can't remember some simple blocking, and she didn't even come prepared. She didn't even bring a pencil to be able to write notes down within her script. I'm sorry. If the show wants me to root for Karen, which I think is what they want me, the audience, to do, they're going to have to make her a little bit less naive. Because what do you mean? You're telling me that Karen wants so badly to be a performer, but she came unprepared to rehearsals. She's not even taking notes. Come on. How am I supposed to root for her when she's acting this way? Does she want it or not? Karen is later complaining to Dev about Derek and makes an offhanded comment about how Derek sexually harassed her on the first day that they met. Now, apparently, she never told Dev about this, and Dev gets rightfully upset. They argue about it. Eileen is desperately trying to placate the investors, telling them that Rebecca will be there soon. They don't trust her. They want to sit down with Rebecca, and one of them even makes a comment about how Jerry would never have put them in this situation. Oh, it's not looking good. Eileen then goes to drink her troubles away at Nick's dive bar. She's complaining that the investors don't want to invest in her. They want to invest in a movie star, and it's upsetting because she needs their money. Nick then hands Eileen multiple stacks of cash. She then makes a joke about, is this $7 million? And he says that he has friends. Intrigue. Derek is at home complaining to Ivy about Karen being useless in rehearsals. Ivy gives Derek advice to treat Karen like a baby, saying the only directors who were ever successful with Marilyn were the ones who babied her. At Bombshell rehearsals, they're working on a new number for the Daryl Zanuck character in the movie. The actor playing Zanuck is not there yet that day, so Christian Borle finally gets to do a real full performance for the first time in the show. And now this is what I mean when I say that the show had really great talent, but they weren't really using people to their full potential. Much like I think that they had people like Leslie Odom Jr. there, and they weren't using his talent to the full potential, never really letting him have his moment to shine. I sort of feel the same way about Christian Borle, as yes, he's a main character and he's acting a lot throughout the show, but this being episode 10 and it being the first time he actually gets to do a whole performance is crazy, especially when we just had to watch somebody do a cover song of Breakaway while walking around New York City in slow motion. We need more of this and less of that. They have time to do a cover of Rihanna's Cheers, I Drink to That, but they don't have time to give Leslie Odom Jr. a full song, to give Christian Borle a full song and dance. That's where I think the show missteps. Christian Borle as Tom performs the song Don't Say Yes Until I Finish Talking. It's a really fun scene. Also, I want to note that this scene came out just a few months before Christian Borle would win his very first ever Tony Award. So it's about time that the show finally started showcasing a little bit more of his performing sort of talent. Derek takes Ivy's advice and starts actually being nice to Karen in rehearsal. Everyone is noticing. Also, Tom's lawyer, not boyfriend, shows up to rehearsal with a coffee for Tom, but then he notices Tom talking to Sam, gets discouraged, and leaves. Tom and Julia are later at a local community performance of their very first ever show they did together, 3 on a Match. It's actually their yearly tradition of going together to see a performance of that very show. This marks Tom and Julia's 10th anniversary of them working together and becoming good friends. After this performance, Tom planned this cute little gift where he had the local cast of 3 on a Match sign an apron for Julia, except for when Tom goes to publicly gift Julia with this cute little presents, Julia storms out of the theater. Nick takes Eileen to meet his friend Randy Cobra, who is played by Broadway actor and Tony nominee Terrence Mann. Eileen is trying to get former rock star Randy Cobra to invest in Bombshell. Ivy and Karen are then hanging out after drinks. Karen is telling Ivy that she's getting discouraged because all she's been doing is basically getting moved around stage. Ivy tells Karen, "You get to be her for 1 week, don't waste the chance." Dev is having drinks after work with RJ. She tells Dev that there is a press opening at the White House and she can get Dev an interview for the job. Dev says he doesn't know if he can move to Washington because Broadway is in New York. And he still hasn't told Karen about everything that has been going on regarding his work and his career. After Julia ran out at the 3 on a Match performance, Tom is upset and thinks that Julia thinks that she is above this or him. Julia then finally informs Tom that Frank found out that she cheated on him, and that's the real reason why she's been so upset. Later, Sam questions Ivy because it seems like she's being very nice to Karen, and he's wondering why, because it's not like Ivy to be nice to Karen. Ivy then admits that she's playing nice in order to get back in everyone's good graces enough to get back in the show. Oh, we have not seen the last of Ivy Lynn in Bombshell, that is for sure. She's got a plan, and she's working on it. It seems like the final straw within Tom's relationship with his not boyfriend lawyer John was the fact that Tom was reading the sports section of the newspaper and commenting on it, which John then calls Tom out, saying that he obviously has feelings for Sam. He says, "You never look at me like that," regarding the way that Tom looks at Sam. And John finally leaves. We all knew it was never going to work out anyway. They have been sprinkling the seeds of doubt about this whole relationship for many episodes now. Ellis informs Eileen that he looked into Nick the bartender and found some important information that she might like to know. Eileen is fuming. She tells Ellis how dare he go digging into the personal lives of her friends. During rehearsal, Karen is having a moment where she's questioning the script to Derek, and then we get this really gross strange scene of Derek imagining Karen as Marilyn and fantasizing about Karen as Marilyn. I don't like this. I don't like Derek. I don't like the direction this is going. But yeah, Derek is now having fantasies about Karen as Marilyn. Eileen tells Nick that he should ask for money if everything works out with Randy Cobra, since he would have brought in a major investor to the show and people get paid a lot of money for that sort of thing. Nick says that it wasn't him who brought in the investor, but it was all Eileen's work anyways. I really love Nick, and I love this growing relationship between Nick and Eileen. Derek then shows up randomly at Karen's house to let Karen know that Rebecca Duvall will be at rehearsals tomorrow, so Karen will go back to being in the ensemble. He then apologizes to Karen about the whole sexual harassment incident from the very first episode, and it is a really sucky apology, honestly. Am I happy that Derek is apologizing and admitting his wrongs? Yeah. Do I think he actually feels sorry? No. Why? Because in this apology, it seems more that he's sorry he did it to Karen and not sorry that he did it. He even goes as far as making the excuse that he made assumptions about the situation with Karen based on many personal experiences. Oh, so he's admitting that he has used his power as director to sexually harass a whole bunch of other women even before Karen, and he never really got called out about it because nobody had ever said anything until now, apparently. He's kind of the worst. Got it. I think I would start to like Derek more if he was genuinely starting to see what he did was wrong, but even in this scene, it doesn't seem like he thinks what he did was wrong. It only seems like he thinks what he did was wrong with Karen and not with everybody else that this has happened with. And the apology doesn't feel very genuine, in my opinion. Dev happens to see Derek walking out of their apartment, and Dev and Derek get into a physical fight. Dev asks Karen if she would quit if there was a bigger opportunity for him outside of New York. Karen is reluctant to really answer, saying that Marilyn is everything that she has been working for. And what if she asked him to give up everything he ever wanted? And Dev gets upset, implying that of course he would for her. Eileen tells the other investors that she will no longer be needing them because Randy Cobra is investing in Bombshell. She does this in an incredibly dramatic way, inviting them all to the dive bar, handing them contracts just to take them back, tear them up, and then burn them in a bucket. She's very theatrical. She's in the right career. Karen is singing Never Give All the Heart in rehearsal, the original song that we heard from episode 1. We also see Ivy peeking in and watching Karen's performance. Then we get a behind the back POV shot of a woman walking off the elevator and into the Bombshell rehearsal rooms. It can only be none other than the mysterious Rebecca Duvall. And this is our first time seeing Rebecca Duvall and finding out that she is being played by Academy Award nominated actress and mother to Maya Hawke, Uma Thurman. Episode 11 starts out with everyone starstruck over Rebecca Duvall. Then they make Christian Borle do this.
Girl, oh no she didn't, oh crrr.
Julia tells Tom and Sam to stop flirting and go out already. We're about to get yet another instance of somebody from the creative team entering into a relationship with one of the performers. Now, I'm a little bit on the fence because I genuinely kind of like Tom and Sam's relationship. I just think it's a little hypocritical of Tom to be doing something like this, because when he found out about Derek and Ivy, he said that it was unethical of Derek to be entering into a relationship with Ivy and that Derek was taking advantage of Ivy. He also saw how getting into a relationship with a performer is not good because of all the drama it has caused with Julia and Michael Swift, which led to Michael Swift essentially being fired. So I don't know at all how anyone thinks that this could be a good idea. I think these creative people really need to start looking to date outside the pool of the people that work for them, but that is just my opinion. Like I said, I'm a little bit on the fence about this one because I think Tom and Sam's relationship doesn't seem as horrible as Derek and Ivy's relationship, because Derek does seem like he's using his position of power to take advantage of people, and we have multiple instances of that, where at this point in time in the show, it doesn't seem like Tom is using his power as one of the creatives to take advantage of Sam. But it's still a little bit unethical, and I still have to point it out because Tom is a bit hypocritical to be doing this, considering how he felt about Derek and Ivy. Rehearsals start with Uma Thurman as Rebecca Duvall singing Let Me Be Your Star, except, oh no, Rebecca Duvall cannot sing. And this is why stunt casting is bad probably about 90% of the time. Apparently, Rebecca's agents and managers all said she could sing, but nobody actually had any proof until this moment that she cannot. Eileen says Rebecca is going to be great because she can fill up seats, and they just need to find another creative solution to work around the whole Rebecca can't sing issue. Derek mentions bringing Ivy back to put her in the mix. He says they need her, God forbid Rebecca can't do the part. Ivy then has worked her way back into the show. She shows up at rehearsals the next day, and Karen is starting to wonder what this will all mean for her. New song alert, Tom and Rebecca Duvall sang a snippet of Dig Deep as he tries to work with her on the song. Derek tells Karen that he won't be needing her anymore for Marilyn, and once again he is fantasizing about Karen as Marilyn Monroe in a gross way. He is imagining Karen singing a cover of Our Day Will Come. It's another clunky cover that I would rather not be in the show. Especially in this context, I absolutely hate it. Rebecca Duvall wants to make changes to the show because she is first and foremost an actress, and she wants the show to dig deeper into the character of Marilyn. She wants to have longer scenes and shorter songs, of course, and she even says the songs are boring and should be more fun. Tom unfortunately overhears this. Tom and Sam go on a date for the first time. Things seem to be going well. Eileen is snooping around Ellis's desk. It seems as though she actually is interested to know the information regarding her friend Nick. Eileen then opens up Nick's file and we see her say, "Great. Another crook." At rehearsals, Rebecca interrupts a scene saying that she doesn't like the direction that it's going. She says the scene was finally starting to get good and now she has to suddenly break into song. She would love doing plays, I would think. Eileen stands up for Rebecca. She tells Tom and Julia that if Rebecca wants an extra long scene for Dig Deep, then Tom and Julia will write her one. Karen shows up at Dev's office for work and finds out that Dev's rival Paul Denby got the secretary job. She questions Dev why he never told her anything that's been going on, and Dev flips it back around on her, saying that it seems that she's more upset that he never told her than she is upset about the situation. I'm really starting to dislike Dev here. Yes, I do feel for him with what he's been going through, but I hate the way that he flips all of this back onto Karen when he was the one who chose for weeks not to tell Karen what was going on within his life. And now he's making her out to be the bad guy for being upset that her boyfriend didn't communicate with her what was going on in his life. Rebecca got the new pages that Eileen told Julia to write for the Dig Deep scene, and she loves Julia's work. She actually says that this gave her more ideas for the show, and she wants to meet with the creative team tonight. Before their meeting with Rebecca, Eileen assures Tom and Julia that if Rebecca says she wants to expand on more scenes, she's going to say no, because she's trusting Tom and Julia's work. Ellis has a scene where he accidentally says on the phone, "Sorry, I can't make it. I have to suck up to that loser again," thinking that he's talking to his girlfriend, when in fact he was on the line with that loser in question, Rebecca's agent Randall. All the cast is at this movie premiere that Rebecca invited them all to. Dev was supposed to go with Karen, but he blows her off. Rebecca shows up to the creative team meeting late. It seems like they are all walking on eggshells around her. She says that if they are going to work together, they can't be afraid to tell her the hard truth. Rebecca suggests lowering the key for her songs and cutting some of the solos. She knows Tom doesn't want to change Dig Deep, but she knows that she can't handle that type of ballad. She also asks if she should hire a vocal coach. Everyone is pleasantly surprised how Rebecca the movie star is actually willing to work with them. Karen and Ivy ditch the movie premiere to get drinks together. They actually have really interesting banter here, and the scene is sort of fun. In this scene, their rivalry has turned less malicious and more friendly. Ivy tells Karen that when Rebecca goes down, everything is up for grabs. Karen makes a comment about Ivy being unstable. However, this fun banter unfortunately comes to a crashing halt when Ivy brings up Dev not being there. Karen mentions that Dev is upset about stuff going on at his work, and Ivy says that he's probably finding comfort in someone else. This obviously strikes a nerve with Karen, as she has been feeling really insecure about Dev and RJ. Karen then storms out. Karen then goes home to be with Dev, except Dev's not there. We then cut to a scene where we see Dev hanging out at a bar with none other than RJ. Eileen goes to her dinner with Nick and confronts him about the skeletons in his closet. They allude to Nick doing business with a mob family and that there's probably more nefarious stuff Nick was involved with. Nick says, if you want to run a bar in this city, you're going to get your hands dirty. He asks her if she's just looking for a way out of getting into a relationship with them. She says she's not looking for a way out, but she is nervous because she is out of practice regarding dating and everything. Nick tells Eileen that they can take things slow and they kiss as they officially get into a relationship. I kind of love this for her. At this point in time, I was just hoping that Nick is going to be the good guy that we, the audience, think him to be. When Ellis runs into Rebecca's agent, Randall, the next day, Randall tells Ellis that he was just using him to get to Rebecca and he hates users. The cast then performs the new version of Dig Deep. We see a performer, Justin, played by another Broadway actor, Henry Stram. Also, the changes seem to allow Rebecca to kind of put on a great performance. She knows what's going to work best for her in order to give a great performance, and it's working out for her with these changes. On her way out, Rebecca tells Eileen that she's got lots more ideas. Everyone seems so worried, but the ideas seem to have worked out in their favor in this case. Episode 12 starts with Derek meeting up with Karen before rehearsals. He wants to make sure that she's staying up to speed on Marilyn since he hasn't had time to work with her. Karen is a little confused, saying it's not his job anymore because usually it's the stage manager's job to make sure that the understudies are prepared for the role. Derek tells Karen that she would make a brilliant Marilyn, and who catches the end of this conversation but none other than the king of eavesdropping himself, Mr. Ellis. To get back in Assistant Agent Randall's good graces, Ellis tells him, I have something I think your boss needs to know. What is his play here? Why would he want to sabotage the production? I don't think what's best for the show would be making Rebecca Duvall feel threatened by Karen if that's what he's trying to do. And it seems like he's trying to cause this wedge between Rebecca and Karen. Maybe he wants Rebecca to quit the show, but I don't understand why if he wants what's best for the show. I don't know. Tony Yazbek, do I even have to say it? Another Broadway person, is playing the character of Ted, and Ted is the new Joe DiMaggio, so he is singing on Lexington and 52nd Street. Rebecca says she wants to talk to Julia on a rewrite for the song Mr. and Mrs. Smith. Rebecca, finding out the information about Derek's feelings that Karen would be a great Marilyn, invites Karen to go out with her. She also does this in the middle of the street, and there are paparazzi following her around. When they are out together, Rebecca makes a comment to Karen about her being Derek's muse. She then encourages Karen to perform while they're out and informs Randall that she is checking out the competition. Karen then performs a cover of Run by Snow Patrol at this bar, club, whatever, and everybody is watching this performance in a she's really good way.
She's really good.
They also give her a standing ovation when she's done, and Rebecca tells Karen that she's not an understudy, she's a star. Tom and Julia have written a new song called Secondhand White Baby Grand, except for the song is not for Rebecca to sing, but for a Marilyn Shadow to sing. This is a new technique they are trying to do in order to be able to still have some of these nicer ballads in the show, but not have to have Rebecca sing them. So a Marilyn Shadow, either Ivy or Karen, will play a version of Marilyn and be able to sing this song. Rebecca, now being friends with Karen, suggests that Karen should sing the song. Rebecca and Karen are becoming good friends. Rebecca goes back to her place. She's gifting Karen a bunch of clothes. She sees a picture of Dev and warns Karen that boyfriends can be a problem when you're on the way to the top. We get a montage of Rebecca and Karen continuing to have nights out together. Frank and Julia find out that Leo has been lying to them about where he's staying, telling each parent that he is staying with the other parent. They're now freaking out, wondering where he is. When's the last time either of them have saw him, and they contact the police. Derek is getting more and more annoyed with Rebecca. She's spending rehearsal time showing the stage manager how to make smoothies for her. Derek then goes to complain to Eileen about Rebecca. He wants Rebecca to spend time at rehearsal actually locking in and stop optimizing his stage manager's time to make smoothies for her. Instead of just talking to Rebecca, Eileen just tasks Ellis with now making the smoothies for Rebecca. Ellis is once again stirring the pot between all of the potential leading ladies. He tells Ivy that she should have gotten the song Secondhand Baby Grand. I don't really understand what his play is, being that the only things that we know about the character Ellis as of this far is that he will do anything in order to become a producer and to have the show be good. But trying to stir the pot between Karen, Ivy, and Rebecca doesn't seem like it is going to be helpful for the show in any way, which is why Ellis's character is really starting to confuse me in this episode. Frank and Julia meet with Leo's best friend to question him on Leo's whereabouts, but the best friend denies knowing any information. Julia suspects otherwise, though. Rebecca is having dinner with Karen and meeting Dev for the first time. She's meeting them at an Indian restaurant, and she's being a bit of a diva to the wait staff. She also does a racist impression. She then starts to worry about the Indian food having peanuts in it since she is allergic to peanuts, and Dev tries to inform her that she is mixing up Indian food with Thai food and that there was no peanuts at this restaurant. Rebecca doesn't believe him and still makes a big deal to the waitstaff about the peanuts, and she's kind of putting her nose up to the food. We're really supposed to see Rebecca as unlikable here. Eileen and Nick are on a date. They're seeing a show, but of course, they run into Eileen's practically stalker ex-husband Jerry and his new much younger girlfriend. Jerry rudely refers to Nick as the pool boy to Eileen. This upsets her enough to take Nick, and they both leave at intermission. Dev and Rebecca get into an argument over Karen at their dinner while Karen is sitting right there. Rebecca makes a comment about how she told Karen that this would be a problem regarding what she said about boyfriends earlier. While they are arguing, we get this slow push in on Karen before she starts to fantasize an entire Bollywood number to the song 1001 Nights. And oh, when I tell you that I completely forgot that this scene existed. I think I blocked this scene out in my mind, and now during my rewatch, it was all coming back to me. Basically, they do this whole Bollywood style number to 1001 Nights.
Hello, this is Editing Maria interrupting you once again. I'm so sorry, but I don't think I really said what I wanted to say in the right way for my original clip, so I just wanted to come in and make sure I get my point across that, first of all, I do think Raza Jeffrey, who is a West End actor, I really like that they gave him his chance to perform, and it's probably one of my favorite parts of the scene to see this performer get to do like a whole song and dance number. I really liked it. Where I was on the fence about the scene originally is it came off to me as cultural appropriation, just how some of the other characters of the show were included in the scene and the way that they were included. It felt off to me, but upon like further research and seeing how other people felt about the scene, other Indian people in particular, It honestly has mixed reviews from people of that culture, where some people don't see a problem with what they did in Smash and some people do see it as cultural appropriation. So I just thought that maybe it wasn't exactly my place to say how people of that culture should feel about that scene. So I just wanted to get that point across, while also saying I do think there could have been somebody else in that writer's room to help Shaman and Whitman write the song, because it is a catchy song, but I'm not sure exactly if Shaman and Whitman should have been the ones to write it on their own, even though I do enjoy their songwriting. But I think maybe somebody who is Indian should have been included in the songwriting process, but that's just my opinion. But overall, I understand what they were trying to do, and I do appreciate them going all out to have this big song and dance number and to let Raza Jeffrey really shine. I liked that whole idea of the scene, and I think that whole aspect of it was really fun. But it is not my place to say how some people should feel in regards to the way the other characters were used. I do understand if there are Indian people out there that do not like this scene, and I can understand why. So that's my addendum. Let's get back to my recap.
Things seem to be going well with Eileen and Nick. She tells him, "You're just so different from Jerry," with a huge smile on her face, and I'm so happy for her. Julia then shows up at Leo's school in disguise, and she looks ridiculous. She confronts Leo's friend, and she literally says, "I'm famous." Like, she borderline gives the "don't you know who I am" to a teenage boy who could not care any less about Broadway musicals. And she basically says that someone with her kind of connections means something in this city, and the principal's not going to be happy to hear that Leo's friend got him hooked on drugs and all this stuff. Like I said, Leo's friend is a teenage boy who absolutely is not responding to these threats in any way. He does not care. But when Julia eventually starts crying, he gives in and says that yes, Leo has been sleeping on his floor, but he just needed some space. Ivy asks Ellis if he can do something for her. Ellis then asks to borrow one of Rebecca's assistant's phones, texting Karen that Julia has the flu and Karen is not needed for rehearsal for the rest of the day. Karen ends up going home, and this will give Ivy the opportunity to step in. Now, I could see Ivy doing all this. As we know, Ivy is one that will do pretty much whatever it takes to get her way to the top, but I still don't understand why Ellis is so dead set on specifically helping Ivy get the part in the show. I wish they would have given us a scene or something where we find out that he thinks the show is only good with Ivy as the lead. You know what I mean? Because otherwise, all that he's doing is sabotaging the show that he claims to want to be a producer for, and it doesn't make any sense. But anyway, Karen obviously doesn't show up after the break, and Ivy gets the secondhand White Baby Grand solo. Leo eventually goes home to his parents and apologizes for running away. At rehearsal, we see Ivy singing secondhand Baby Grant, and she kills it, of course. When Ivy's done singing, Rebecca makes a comment saying, "I think Marilyn should sing that song." And that's the end of the episode. Episode 13 opens with Tom and Sam covering another opening, another show, as we get a montage of the characters and cast members on their way to Boston to start tech rehearsals for the Bombshell previews. That's right, we're at previews already. Derek accidentally tells Ivy that he loves her in an offhanded way. This gets Ivy all excited, but I don't think Derek actually realized what he said in the moment. Tom wants to add a new song in the show for Karen and Ivy to sing together. It's a song that he already had that didn't make it into the Heaven on Earth musical. Ted, who is the new DiMaggio, runs into rehearsal to tell Derek and Tom that he got a pilot and that he will be leaving in order to go shoot this TV show pilot that he got. Leaving the show without a Joe DiMaggio right before previews. Derek tells the stage manager to get Michael Swift on the phone. The show is previewing in 2 days. After the whole Leo situation, it seems as though Frank and Julia have made up and are even getting back together. Tom, hearing Julia's good news regarding her family situation, chickens out of telling her that Michael Swift will be coming back to the show to play DiMaggio. Rebecca is freaking out over the fact of Ted quitting 2 days before the show and the fact that nobody told her this imperative information. Derek is trying to comfort Rebecca in her dressing room. Who is listening outside the door? It's actually Ivy this time. Ellis comes over to her and even makes a comment saying, "That's usually my thing." Yeah, we know. Dev is using his sick days because he's too depressed to go into work considering his whole work situation. RJ apparently heard he was sick and came over to his apartment with bourbon to make him feel better. Eileen informs Julia that they have to bring back Michael Swift. Julia is begging Eileen to go with anyone else. Honestly, she's being ridiculous because who else would be able to learn and perfect the part in just 2 days? Eileen even offers for Julia to take time off from the show in order to not have to be around Michael. Julia ends the scene by storming out, saying that Michael is not coming back. End of discussion. As if she's the one that gets the final say. Back over with Dev, he and RJ unfortunately kiss. Dev breaks things off and apologizes, saying that he can't. He already kissed her though. Julia then informs Frank that the production wants to bring Michael Swift back. This seems to be about to break their very fragile state that they are in. Frank is obviously not happy about it. Derek is bending over backwards to cater to Rebecca because, as he puts it, she is a house of cards. He asks Tom to write a longer intro to one of the songs to accommodate for a costume change for Rebecca. Tom says he will only do it if Derek lets him have his song for Ivy and Karen. Rebecca does a special happy birthday for Derek because it's his birthday. She does the whole happy birthday, Mr. President thing, except for, of course, she says Mr. Director and brings out a cake for him and everybody. Eileen calls Julia out for holding an entire production hostage because of her own personal issues. She says it's not fair to the production, and she's absolutely right. The way Julia acts in these last couple of episodes is so annoying. She is holding an entire production hostage just because of her own personal issues. It's like, you can't blame everybody else because you had an affair with this guy. You're putting people's jobs and livelihoods on the line, as if Julia doesn't do the production or doesn't let Michael do the production, she puts everything at risk. Everything that a whole lot of people, not just her, have worked really hard to produce. It's very annoying. Dev shows up at tech rehearsals to surprise Karen with flowers. She says he should have called. It's a bad time. Tech week is very stressful for everybody in the entire production, and Dev will have to wait at the hotel for the time being. Julia informs Tom that if Michael comes to Boston, she's out. Sam's family lives nearby in Boston. They found out he was in town, and Sam takes Tom to meet them for dinner. Derek has yet another creepy moment with another one of his performers. You probably guessed it. He tells Rebecca that she's luminous and then proceeds to hook up with her. He never changes. I hate him. Imagine how tired we are. Imagine how tired we are because just a few episodes ago, he was apologizing for doing this to Karen, and now he's back at it again. Ivy returns back to the theater to take Derek out for his birthday when she discovers Derek and Rebecca together. Dev then proposes to Karen. Welcome back, Jeremiah Fisher, proposing because you felt guilty about cheating on your girlfriend. Right. Like I've said, Dev starts out perfectly fine and just devolves into this horrible boyfriend. And yes, I also think Jeremiah Fisher is a horrible boyfriend. Karen says that she can't give Dev an answer right now. She's in tech. She's got other things to be worried about and focusing on than all of this stuff with Dev. Everyone's partying in one of the hotel rooms after rehearsal. Karen shows up because she was looking for someone to talk to. Bobby, who has been one to stir the pot, suggests that Karen and Ivy should have a sing-off. Everybody agrees. Ivy confronts Karen. Remember, Ivy's upset because Derek had just said that he loved her, and then he went and cheated on her with another woman. And Ivy thinks that Karen knew about Derek and Rebecca hooking up because Karen and Rebecca had been kind of close friends. Ivy does a cover of I'm Going Down by Mary J. Blige. While she's singing, she imagines herself alone in the hotel room as rain pours in a window behind her. And she also imagines flashbacks of Derek. It's kind of cheesy, and when she's done, everybody is stunned to silence as they could tell just how emotional the song was for Ivy. Dev, of course, walks in at the wrong time, finding Karen at this party, and he's upset because he just proposed to Karen and then she ran off to go to a party. I will say that Karen didn't intend to go to the party. She kind of stumbled in it, just looking for somebody to talk to. Dev angrily tells Karen that he sacrificed everything for her. He even gave up a job in Washington so she could do her stupid show. And oh, so now he didn't get what he wants, so now his true colors come out. He thinks what Karen does is stupid, and Karen doesn't even know yet about him cheating on her. In this argument, Dev brings up RJ, and of course, Karen gets annoyed. He says, at least RJ listens to him, and Karen says, well then why don't you just go be with RJ then? That's when Dev admits that he was, and that he did cheat on her with RJ. He tries to give the excuse that kissing RJ made him realize just how much he wants to be with Karen, which is so annoying. Frank and Leo can see how stressed Julia is, that nobody in the creative team is listening to her about her feelings on bringing back Michael Swift into the mix. They say they don't want her to give up on the show, and they're coming to Boston with her to support her, even if Michael Swift has to be in the show. The episode ends with Ivy ending up at the same bar as Dev. He buys her a drink. Oh, it's not looking good. It's all downhill from here. The next episode opens with Dev in bed, and he turns over, and who's there? Ivy. I'm going to go out on a limb and correct me if you don't agree, but I'm going to say this feels a little bit out of character for Ivy, in my opinion. Like, yes, Ivy has done some bad things before, and she has done a lot to try and get herself in the top spot of the show. She's been mean to Karen. She's sort of undermined Karen in some ways, but I just can't imagine that Ivy would stoop to this low of a level in terms of having an affair with Karen's boyfriend. Just seemed like a little bit crossing the line, even for someone like her, in my opinion. And maybe it's just because I want to see some goodness in Ivy. Like, I really want to root for Ivy as a character. I know she does a lot of bad things, but I think that's what makes her interesting, is that she does have mean girl tendencies and she does bad things, but you always kind of see this side of humanity to her where maybe she feels guilty about it later. Maybe she's, working to be a better person. At least we see like glimpses of that here and there. And then her stooping this low just feels so crossing the line that it turns her more into an evil antagonist than what she started out as, which was a more interesting, complex character that has done both bad and good things, if that makes any sense. But correct me if you don't agree, if there are any Ivy haters out there. And I can understand if you are an Ivy hater. Julia and her family get to Boston at the exact same time as Michael Swift, and they have this really awkward stare down. Eileen finds out about Derek and Rebecca, and she threatens him that this situation with Rebecca better not blow up in any way. She'll strangle him. Honestly, if you didn't want to have so much drama or any situation with Rebecca, you should have fired Derek, Eileen. There had to have been a better director out there that wasn't going to be using his power to try and get with every single woman performer on the cast. There had to have been. And if you didn't want that drama, you shouldn't have hired him. Eileen's biggest mistake, probably, hiring Derek. her one character flaw. In my opinion. Karen tries to comfort Ivy, saying that she had no idea about Rebecca and Derek. Ivy tells Karen that it's not her fault, and if Karen is nice to her right now, she'll break down. Ivy is really starting to feel the consequences and the guilt from her actions with Dev. She's starting to crack. Karen tries to talk to Rebecca about Derek. She mentions that Derek was seeing Ivy. Rebecca says that she was unaware that Derek was seeing anyone, but it also comes across like Rebecca does not care at all about Ivy or getting in this whole mess of a situation. Honestly, to her, it's not a mess because she just doesn't care. It's the first night of previews for Bombshell, and Karen is nervous the entire show because she hasn't heard from Dev yet. She knows that he went back to New York City, but he hasn't talked to her. During the first previews, we get to hear a new original song titled Smash, which is the name of the show.
Hey, that's the name of the show.
Sung by Karen and Ivy. It's a lot of fun. After singing Smash, Ivy and Karen compliment each other and they even share a hug. It would be a really sweet moment for anyone who's rooting for a Karen and Ivy friendship, but it all feels a bit ominous considering that Ivy feels extremely guilty over what she did with Dev, and Karen is yet to find out this information. At this point, we're just waiting for that other shoe to drop. In the first previews, the show ends with Rebecca singing Secondhand Baby Grand and this scene of Marilyn Monroe committing suicide. It's very awkward to watch as the audience is confused by the whole thing. It's such a downer way to end a show that they were putting on. We know this because the show ends and there was no applause at first. The warning signals are going up that before tomorrow, the writers better change this bad ending to their show. Dev shows back up in Boston after the show is over. Karen apologizes to him, which is crazy considering what he's done. Now, Karen doesn't know this yet, but he does know that he cheated on her with RJ. So why is she the one apologizing? Crazy. Then Karen introduces Dev to Ivy, thinking that they have never met before. Oh, it's getting so bad. Eileen wants Tom and Julia to write a new ending, obviously, but Julia is so adamant about not changing the ending and liking the ending of the show, even after hearing what the audience thought about her ending, because that's how Marilyn died in real life. Throughout the entire show, we get these glimpses that Julia is not the best writer. She doesn't have the best instincts, and maybe the show just wanted to show us that everything is not good on your first draft, but there have been so many other scenes where everyone is wanting Julia to rewrite the scenes and she hasn't rewritten them yet. And now with her being so adamant about this original ending, it's like, Julia, wake up, girl. This is not working out for your show. Sam wants Tom to come with him to church on Sunday. Tom is opening up to Sam about feeling like his relationship with Julia is on the rocks, considering that he didn't stand up for her about the Michael situation. Now, Tom also thought that the best thing for the show would be to bring Michael Swift back to the show, and now he knows Julia is mad at him for not taking her side, basically. Ellis is annoyingly talking to Eileen and Nick like he's running things in the show. He's complaining about Rebecca. This is our first big glimpse into maybe why Ellis was doing what he was doing in the last episode. He doesn't like Rebecca for this part. Maybe he always wanted it to be Ivy, probably, but he's complaining, and he even says, I'm producing. Somebody has to. To Eileen, oh, now he really stepped out of line there. In so many situations, I can't believe the audacity of this man and the fact that everybody just lets him stick around. Like, yeah, sure, he could stay after, kind of crossing the line of an assistant so many times. Eileen then does a cover of September Song with the piano player at the bar. It's the first time we really get to see Angelica Houston sing on the show.
Hello, this is Editing Maria interrupting you once again because this scene where Eileen sings September Song is actually a little bit more layered than I originally thought. It's not just another cover thrown in there. First of all, and I can't believe I didn't recognize this on my first watch, but the piano player playing the piano for Angelica Houston in this scene is actually songwriter for the show, Mark Shaman himself, which is quite a fun little touch. However, there's also a bit of a deeper meaning behind having Angelica Houston sing and also this song choice. September Song was originally from the musical Knickerbocker Holiday, and originally this song within this musical was actually sung by Angelica Houston's grandfather, Walter Houston. So the entirety of this scene is sort of like a little tribute to Angelica Houston's grandfather, having her sing the song that he sang within this musical. It is in fact a much cuter scene when you understand the meaning behind it than just thinking that it's Angelica Houston singing a song so the show can put another cover in. So I can't believe I almost missed this. And now back to the recap.
Karen tells Deb that she loves him and it would be stupid to let RJ ruin their relationship. Karen is a much more forgiving person than me because there's no way I would ever say that to somebody that cheated on me. And just wait, because we know Karen's not going to feel the same once she finds out that Dev also cheated on her with Ivy. But also in this moment, Karen asks Dev if marriage is still on the table. Ugh. Ivy finally confronts Derek. She says 3 days ago, he told her he loved her, and then he hasn't talked to her since. Then she finds out that he dropped her for a movie star. Derek says, and I quote, "Rebecca needs my attention, and I'm giving it to her. Is there any other approach?" Oh, every time. When you think, how could this man get any worse? He just continues to be awful. He's despicable. He's disgusting. Now he's justifying his actions like he had to sleep with Rebecca because it's what's best for the production. He's honestly so gross. And the way he excuses his own actions, right. Rebecca is freaking out because she blames the show flopping on opening night on herself. While talking to Karen, she starts to choke on the smoothie that she's drinking. She's actually having an allergic reaction. In the very next scene, the cast is being informed that the show will not go on that night or the next night because Rebecca is in the hospital. She had an allergic reaction to peanuts that were put in her smoothie. Now that everyone has off, Sam invites the rest of the cast to church with him the next day to say a prayer. Randall, Rebecca's agent, tells Eileen that he thinks the smoothie incident was deliberate. He says Rebecca is always so careful and she would have never drank the smoothie if she knew there were peanuts in it. The creative team is then deliberating on what to do if Rebecca can't do the show anymore. Karen is technically the understudy, but they don't think she's ready. Meanwhile, Ivy pretty much knows the whole show. Dev meets up with Ivy in secret. It turns out he must have lost the engagement ring intended for Karen in Ivy's hotel room. Ivy is appalled that Dev is going to ask Karen to marry him after what they did. Dev tells Ivy that it's none of her business. Michael, back at it again, corners Julia. Remember just a few episodes ago when they both said that they were done with this whole affair situation? Welp, apparently Michael wasn't really telling the truth about that. He thinks that Julia wants to be with him because the team would have never reached out to want him to play DiMaggio again if Julia didn't also want it. So this must also be that Julia wants him. They share a moment where Michael tries to kiss her. Julia tries to set him straight, but it's not clear that Michael is going to be accepting these boundaries. Julia tries to confront Tom after Michael just tried to kiss her. Now she blames Tom for that and everything else because Tom didn't stay on her side about bringing Michael back to the show. She blames him and says that he put the show ahead of her and her family, and now she might not be able to save her relationship. Tom rightfully says, "You did that." And he's so right here, as Tom tried to warn Julia about Michael when they were first starting back up. He never condemned her for it, but he did tell her that it wasn't going to be a good idea. And now Julia is turning back around and blaming everything on Tom, all of the mistakes that she made, mind you. It's just so unfair to have Julia dump all her blame onto her best friend when it's all her own mistakes that caused them to get this way. And it's unfair of Julia to say that Tom would put the production ahead of her and her family when Julia is essentially putting herself ahead of the production, her friendship with Tom, and the well-being of this entire show. When all Tom has been for Julia has been supportive and not judgmental. And this is the way that she treats him, by blaming all of her own problems on him. It's actually crazy how Julia cannot take accountability for her own actions. In this scene, Julia tells Tom that they're not a team. She's going back home to finish writing the show, and basically Tom and Julia are no longer friends. Everyone shows up at Sam's church to support him, and we finally get to hear Leslie Odom Jr. sing a song. It only took until episode 14 to give one of these very talented side characters their time to shine, which is exactly what I'm talking about when I talk about the missteps of the show. They had all this talent just sitting there and they weren't using it. But the scene also angers me a little bit because we finally get to hear Sam sing, and it is beautiful, but he sings only one verse because he invited Karen to sing with him, and then Karen basically takes over and sings the rest of the song. So on my original watch, what I thought was finally going to be Sam's moment in the show turns into yet another moment for Karen. And sure, Catherine McPhee has a good voice and all, but we've heard Catherine McPhee sing almost every other single song. Like, we cannot let one other person have just a little bit more time. Even to do a duet with Catherine McPhee would have been better. They could have let him sing the whole song. Let him sing. Hashtag let Leslie sing. I feel like I'm having flashbacks to the Let Niall Sing movement, and I will be on board for the Let Leslie Sing movement throughout the rest of Smash. Tom and Julia apologize to each other after church. Rebecca admits to Karen that she knew there were peanuts in the smoothie because she could taste it, but she decided to drink the smoothie anyways because she wanted an out for the show. She really wasn't handling the pressure of playing Marilyn well. She didn't like that the first night preview flopped, and she felt like it was all her fault. So with Rebecca leaving, who's going to play Marilyn now? The finale episode starts off 15 minutes before a bombshell performance. Tom and Julia are making changes at the last minute, and they're rushing through the theater to get the changes to the stage manager in time. We hear them say, "Where's Marilyn? Get this to her." We see this POV shot of the camera moving through the halls of the backstage area and onto the stage, and people looking directly into the camera, telling whoever's playing Marilyn to break a leg. But at this point, we don't know who's playing Marilyn. Is it Ivy or Karen? Title card 12 hours earlier. The creative team is arguing about who should now play Marilyn. Derek once again fantasizes Karen dressed as Marilyn, and his Karen fantasies are the catalyst to him making the executive decision that Karen will go on as Marilyn Monroe that night. He says this in front of everyone, including the cast and crew, and the other creatives are shocked because Derek didn't consult them before making this decision. Everyone is stressing out because there's a lot of stuff Karen doesn't know. Understudies usually don't get thrown in to start rehearsing until after previews. And remember, we're very much still within previews, so there's a lot that Karen doesn't know. Meanwhile, Ivy pretty much knows most of the Marilyn material. Tom and Julia are worried that Karen is unprepared. Tom and Julia are also working on a new song for the new ending of Bombshell, and they have to finish it by tonight. Yikes. Ellis is really upset that Ivy is not getting the part as Marilyn. He complains about this to Eileen, and Eileen tells him that he's allowed to be upset, but he's not a producer, so he doesn't get a say. Ellis then tells Eileen, "I didn't get Rebecca Duvall out of your way so you could ignore me yet again." That's right. Ellis was the one who put the peanuts in Rebecca's smoothie, which we could probably guess from the way he was acting. Ellis was kind of a crazy character in the terms of the stuff that he was able to get away with, but trying to basically poison somebody, I think, is the final straw of like a maniacal, evil antagonist trying to enact his plans and schemes to disrupt the show. And as a lot of the characters, and especially the more antagonistic characters within the show, he has gone full on just plain, bad guy within this show. It's camp. At the end of the day, how am I watching this show? I'm going, it's camp, especially in this scene, because then Eileen fires Ellis and he actually says, "You haven't heard the last of me," in a very, what I would say, kind of cliche, campy line. It's kind of like, what are we doing at this point? This cannot be the same show that it was in episode 1, and it's not. But if you watch it with the mindset that it's just camp, like the bad guy, villainous character says, "You haven't heard the last of me," yeah, that makes sense for what the show has become. Michael once again confronts Julia. He tells her, "You don't have to run away." And then Julia gives what I think is another sort of funny line when she says, "I'm not running away from you. I'm running away from myself." He informs her that he told his wife about the affair and his wife left him. Of course, Frank sees this interaction where Julia and Michael are talking, so you know it's not going to go over well within Julia's very fragile relationship. Frank later tells Julia that he can't trust her even though he wants to. Rehearsals are continuing to go a little bit chaotically as everyone tries to get Karen ready to play Marilyn. Ivy is watching Karen rehearse from the wings. She is not looking very happy. Ivy confronts Derek. She wants to know why Derek chose Karen over her, even though Ivy knows the whole show. Derek then tells Ivy, "I see her in my head. She just has something you don't." When Taylor Swift said casually cruel in the name of being honest, she was talking about Derek in this scene right here, because Derek could have said this in a much nicer way, and I know Derek is not particularly a nice guy, but this was not the thing that Ivy needed to hear at the state that she is emotionally right now. So we know it's not going to be good for Miss Ivy Lynn. Eileen has had it with Derek. She didn't like him making the decision to put Karen as the lead without consulting anyone, and she doesn't think that Karen has the ability to learn all of this in one day. Karen gets upset because she overhears this conversation of Eileen having no faith in her. Ivy did actually find the engagement ring that Dev intended to give to Karen, and she chooses this moment to place it on Karen's vanity in the dressing room and to admit to Karen that Dev cheated on Karen with her. Karen doesn't believe Ivy at first. She thinks Ivy would make all this up to try and throw Karen off her game. And now Ivy is using this to throw Karen off her game, but unfortunately, she's not making this up. Karen then goes to confront Dev. He admits this is true, and he gives the tried and true TV show boyfriend excuse of the "I thought we were broken up." When I said "welcome back, Jeremiah Fisher," I really did mean it. Because what do you mean you are saying that you thought you broke up with your girlfriend as an excuse for cheating on her? Right. He also admits it was a mistake. Derek refuses to replace Karen as Marilyn at the request of Eileen. He says that it's his vision, and if Eileen wants a hit, she'll shut up about it. Eileen's annoying borderline stalker ex-husband Jerry, of course, shows up before previews to basically try and annoy Eileen and disrespect her and throw her off her game. Finding out where your ex-wife is and showing up just to annoy her is basically one of Jerry's only personality traits. Tom and Julia are arguing about how the ending to the show should go. They still have to write the ending for tonight. They also both admit that they are unsure about if Karen will be able to do this. Karen then storms away during rehearsals. She's finally letting her personal life get to her, especially after finding out that Dev recently cheated on her twice, one of the times with her known rival and enemy. Julia gets sick and then makes a comment that the last time she was sick like this was when she was pregnant with her son Leo. The show is implying here that Julia is likely pregnant with Michael Swift's baby, but if you're at all worried about this plotline, don't be, because it will never be mentioned again. Remember when I said that season 2 has a new showrunner? Well, this is one of the storylines that they decided to cut and pretend like never happened, and probably for good reason. Then a wild Nick Jonas appears a second time. He came back to give Eileen the Deca piece because he still believes in the production, which is so sweet. Eileen informs Nick Jonas's Lyle that Marilyn is gone. He tells her, I did hear that she lost a star, and Eileen informs him, my assistant tried to poison her with peanuts. Derek runs into Dev and tells him he needs to back off Karen. He says, she's mine now. What are we doing? What's going on? How are there so many of these hilariously over-the-top campy lines within this last episode? It's just like comedy gold, even though it's not meant to be comedic. Karen is having her first ever diva temper tantrum meltdown in the dressing room. She tells Derek that she can't do it. Derek basically tells Karen to channel her emotions into the performance. He says she has so much of Marilyn already within her, and now she knows Marilyn's heartbreak too. During this time that Karen was having her little tantrum and nobody could find her, Eileen, Tom, and Julia had asked Ivy to prepare to be Marilyn, thinking that Karen sort of left very much like Rebecca left. And Ivy gets dressed and ready to hopefully be able to finally go on stage and perform for an audience the role of Marilyn, what she always wanted, the leading role, the titular role. But right when Ivy arrives on stage in costume, we see Derek walk in with Karen. It's over for Ivy. Karen is still playing Marilyn. Absolutely heartbreaking that they made her get all dressed up and got her hopes up just to once again crush her. It's even more heartbreaking because in the next scene, we see that Ivy's mom showed up to support her, thinking that Ivy was going to play Marilyn, and then Ivy has to break the news to her mom that they didn't pick her. We see the exact same POV shot from the beginning of the episode, but this time we see the shot from the back of Karen's head, confirming to us that at the beginning of the episode, it was in fact Karen making her way to the stage to play Marilyn in the Bombshell musical. Then there was a montage of the cast performing all of the separate original songs that we have learned throughout this entire season of the show, and we see Karen as Marilyn throughout the performances. At the end, we hear Karen perform the new song that Tom and Julia had just written for the ending of the show, Don't Forget Me, and we see Karen bring the house down with this other original song. And by the way, I will just say that I think after Let Me Be Your Star, Don't Forget Me is probably my second favorite one of the original songs in the entire show. Ending the premiere episode with Let Me Be Your Star and then ending your finale with Don't Forget Me, I think was two of the best decisions that the show made throughout its entire run of season 1, where they made many a misstep. As Karen is singing Don't Forget Me, we pan over and see that everyone in the audience is moved by her performance. It looks like the show is going well. We also see Ivy in the dressing room with a handful of pills, leaving us on a cliffhanger note for her character before going into season 2. And the show ends with Karen finishing Don't Forget Me. That's the end of the show, baby. How did they do? We can only assume. We'll have to wait till next season, but things are going to be a lot different next season considering it's a new showrunner. The show has a very different feel than this season. Is it a different feel in a better way? Not necessarily, but we will cross that bridge when we get to it in season 2. And that's a wrap on this extensive recap of Smash season 1. I just want to say that although the show could be silly and goofy and not always have the best writing, I do thoroughly enjoy myself just because I'm a big musical theater fan and I just love watching the original songs and performances and having a silly, fun, good time. And I think Smash can be such a fun show if you go into it with the mindset of this is just camp. We're having a good time here. And we're seeing a lot of really great performers perform. And that is so true because the way that they had so much talent within their cast of performers was pretty crazy. And the original songs are all fairly good. And it's just such a fun thing to enjoy overall, even though, yeah, the writing tends to descend into what are we doing here? But I had a fun, good time. I hope you did too. If anyone even makes it to the end of this video, because at this point, I am very worried that this video is way too long and no one's gonna watch it. This is probably my biggest undertaking that I've done on this channel yet. So I really hope that if you made it to the end of this video, you enjoyed yourself. Please don't forget to give this video a like, leave me a comment. Let me know what your opinions on Smash were. Did you watch it? Do you remember some of these storylines? Who's your favorite character? There's a lot of unlikable characters. What's your favorite original song? And if you're new here, don't forget to click on my channel and check out some of my other stuff. I do quite a few different things on this channel. So if you like some of those other things, you might want to subscribe to my channel so you always know when I post a new video. And with all that being said, thank you to everybody who made it to this point in the video. I appreciate it. I will see you in the next one.